10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Magic After Dark. My name is Ryan Edwards. This is my co-host,
Blaze Sarah. Welcome everybody to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Man,
we are so ecstatic for tonight's guest.
We're excited. This is going to be insane. This is going to be insane. Yeah. This is unheard of, untapped territory. Should we just bring him in like right away? I'm excited to get it.
I think so. I think we should just get straight into it. Let's bring him in. He's not ready for it.
Put your hands together at home for Doug, the man, the myth, the legend. A guy from New York, McKenzie. There he is.
Oh, he got it.
Was that how that's supposed to work?
Yeah.
I like your style.
Like, I had to focus. Had to take the ring off of the lens.
If my hand wouldn't cover it otherwise, you know?
Yeah. Like, oh, sorry, guys. Stream's over. I busted my camera.
And knocks it down.
What's up?
Not too much. How about you, sir?
So far, so good. I was saying you can't call me like the man, the myth, the legend. That's like high expectations. We got to lower them, and then like maybe I'll beat them.
I think those are low expectations for tonight, though. Really, I'm setting the bar that high.
Make me work tonight.
That's it. That's
all the real secrets.
Well, I mean, when you're the guy behind everything in the Magic community,
every trick ever. You know, it's crazy. He's mastered technology and time travel. That's why he's the man, the myth, the legend.
Exactly. Well, you know, because like Doug, I mean, you've worked for Blaine, you worked for Dynamo. I don't know who else you've worked for. It's probably countless number of people. You've created some of the craziest technology products that aren't even on the market, some of them, because I know
they're not supposed to be on the market.
Yeah. They're not allowed. They're like, but I know every time we meet up, I'm always like, hey, Doug, I heard this this thing you're doing. And, you know, it's on the DL. Like, I can't show people or something.
Yeah. I tend to be somewhat private about the stuff that I do, just because, you know, I value originality in Magic a lot. And I feel like it's hard to be original these days. A lot of people share everything and I like to talk about everything, and that's not fun. I like to have my own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Have that air of mystery, that mystique.
My Alexa's talking to me. Alexa, stop.
That's always the best.
Yeah. Middle of a show, that's not great.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing that I feel like would be a cool conversation topic. Tell them about the neutron accelerator, says X. The neutron accelerator. It's a anti-aging device.
Name on the neutron accelerator, you know? No, I don't. Is that the chat in YouTube, or where is that?
Yes, yeah. So we have chats in Twitch and YouTube. So we've got.
Oh wow, this is going out to multiple channels, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're everywhere. We're everything all at the time. So that was an interesting thing that you brought up, though, was the idea of like that you really value originality in Magic, and I feel like the only way that someone can necessarily, in the current state of Magic, like kind of plant a flag and go like, this was my thing, usually is through publishing it and then putting it out to other magicians. But if you want to be the only guy performing your material, then that's very counterintuitive, especially if it's really good enough that you would want to protect it. So it's, you know, I'm curious on your thoughts on that, and, you know, what your strategies are for, you know.
It's a very interesting question. And my you say strategies. I don't really have a lot of strategies for it. My strategy is like keep my mouth shut, pretty much, is my first strategy. The second strategy that, you know, kind of evolved recently after talking to Aussie, because Aussie and I both encountered the same problem at the same time with different people. And in my case, I had an idea as something I was doing in my virtual show, and then it ended up being released by a product that people that hadn't seen my show and literally came up with it completely independently had the same idea. And, they're friends. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, I've had this for 6 months. And, if I had wanted to sell it, I would have sold it. But I wanted to keep it for myself.
Yeah.
But, I get it. I can't stop you from putting it out. But just, I've had it for a long time. I showed them all my work on it. And I talked to Asi about it. And they're like, well, if you'd had it as a product, then maybe it would have been different. And I was like, well, maybe I should just start selling things to one person, Sell it to one person, then it is technically a product, and it's out there, and it's published, and it's been for sale.
Yeah.
And you sell it to like a friend or something. But I don't know. I don't necessarily want to go to all that length to protect stuff. The other interesting idea is talk to Michael Blau, putting stuff in the blockchain, right? So like
I was about to say we just did an episode with Michael.
Oh, I know.
Like, why not just create an NFT of it and sell it on the blockchain? And if you only sell one, right?
Well, then it's out there and it's published, and people don't necessarily have to know the address of where it is or what the token ID is. But at least you can say like, hey, here it is in a public ledger. That I have it. I have the description of it, and it's mine. Yeah. I don't know. Like again, that feels like a lot of work. I'd rather spend my time creating stuff than protecting stuff, right? I think that's. I learned that from Cyril years ago. Again, Cyril's been ripped off left and right for years, and it used to like really piss him off. And then he got to the point where he just said, I don't want to know about it. I just want to keep doing my thing and not waste so much of my energy and time fighting it. And Asi told me the same thing, and he learned that also from Danny Ortiz, who basically also said the same thing. So I don't know. It's tough, but I have less and less energy these days to like, I shouldn't say that, it's a bad strategy, but to like fight stuff. It's just not interesting.
It's tough. I remember back in the day, I came up with a trick. Like I was like 17 and I had, maybe even younger, I had no idea how to publish a magic trick or anything like that. And I said, I went to the magic shop and I said, hey, I have this trick I came up with. And they said, yeah, it looks original and stuff. We've never seen it. And I said, so what do I do with it? And they were like, well, you can sell it, like send it to a magazine so it gets printed or something. But one guy said the best way to say that it was yours is write it, like write a letter of it. Or, I mean, now you could video it, put
mail
it
to yourself,
mail it to yourself, right? Because it's post-stamped.
Right.
It's illegal for them to do that. Yeah. And so then at least if a company came at you and said, hey, or you said, hey, I have this first, you could even send them the envelope and go, look, I have this envelope. I mean, it's still a lot of work.
It's like a one-time use policy, though, because then someone else lays a claim and you're like, I had an envelope with that in there.
I had an envelope, I promise.
But hopefully then if you, at least that other company would be able to back you up as well and say, right. Doug did have it earlier.
Or you could publish it obscure places. The other thing that I actually do is like, I have my trusted friends that I'll show things to and people that have also a little bit of weight in the magic world that like, I'll show things and they'll know it's mine. So if like something does come up, I'm like, oh, why don't you talk to so-and-so? Because they've seen mine. Right. And then it's they can literally tell somebody, 3 or 4 people like, yeah, that's Doug's. But
yeah, it's tough. I remember one time I posted something online and I was like, oh, just came up with this thing. And I post that. And then I got a DM from someone and they had a private Instagram account. So I couldn't even see what link they were sending me unless I were to go and follow them. But I didn't know who they were. And they sent me this thing and they were like, I can't believe you would say this was yours. I published this in an ebook PDF 6 years ago. And I'm just like, right. How am I supposed to have seen every ebook that's ever, so it's like an interesting balance because it's like by publishing something somewhere even in an obscure place, there's a record of that it was yours, that you planted that flag or that you did it. But then if people can't find it and they don't know, then they're not going, it's like you can't really prevent that kind of parallel thinking.
Right.
So
I had an issue with an effect that I put on a Blaine show years ago. It was something I still do actually with a face. You make someone's face appear in a dollar bill, right? So you take a photo of them and then the face of the dollar bill changes. And long story short, look, it was on the David Blaine show in 2008. It had been seen by millions of people. Somebody tried to release a product of this thing, and they went around, I think, like a Genie convention. They were giving out this thing to a lot of people. And someone posted a Facebook post of, I think it was John Lubbock, of his face on a dollar bill. And I was like, hey, where'd you get that? He's like, oh, this guy's selling it. And I was like, that's not his to sell. So I messaged him, and he acknowledged that he knew about mine, and he'd seen it on a Blaine show, and he hadn't even been doing magic. He started doing magic after that Blaine show aired. That's when he started doing magic. And he's like, "Don't worry, I gave you credit." And I was like, "I don't want fucking credit. He's selling my trick." He's like, "Well, I changed it." He's like, "I changed the method on it," and his method was like terrible, to be honest. It was like not examinable. It was awful. So then he went and he emailed Dennis Bear at Conjuring Archive, and Dennis, he's got the archive. He knows all the stuff, you know. Dennis wrote back to him. He CC'd me like, "That's Doug's," you know. So long story short, what's his name was putting it out. Magic Estate, is that his name? From Florida. Super nice guy.
Magic Estate.
Who was the one that was actually behind it, financing and publishing it. Took it off the market because he had done his due diligence, and like literally it was on a David Blaine show with it. Millions of people saw. It was like, just because it's on a TV show doesn't mean it's published and you can do it, you know. And it's also funny because as soon as it goes in a show, or as soon as someone else gets away with it, they do it, then everyone else thinks, "Oh, it's okay because so and so just did it," and then it gets out of control, and then you just have to contain it before it.
Yeah, you know. I think that's a tough thing. Like I know a couple guys that have had like 15 products they filmed with Murphy's like 4 years ago, and Murphy still hasn't released them all. Right, so they have the whole DVDs filmed. Everything's good, but they're
not even downloads. They're DVDs. That's how long ago.
Exactly.
They've got the whole VHS.
Yeah, they've got. Man, I've got stacks of Blu-rays. I just don't know what to do.
They're like, we have all these DVDs, but all these projects where they haven't, you know, if there's a gimmick or something, they haven't finished making the gimmicks or whatever, right? I don't know how Murphy's is running stuff there, but in the meantime, other people are bringing out their effects, and they're like, there's another one off the list. You know, we filmed that 4 years ago with Murphy's. Like all the footage is there, but once another company already releases the product,
it's too late.
It's tough to go back and go, well, we already have that product out. And it's like, where? You know, well, Murphy's has it filmed on their database or whatever, right?
Yeah. But Mark Kirstein's going through something similar at the moment with a product that he put out. I don't want to get into too many details, but yeah, he had a product he put out, and then someone else released a product that was similar, but they told him before they released it they were going to change something about it that made theirs different, and then they released it and they did not change anything.
Change it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Come on. That was funny, you know.
Jeez. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a problem in our world, and you know, after protecting things for so long, eventually you just go like,
yeah,
I just want to keep doing what I do and do things that make me happy, and not necessarily things that are gonna make me unhappy.
Yeah.
You know?
Although the best thing is like not to stress about it. Like you see so many guys jumping on Facebook and like bombarding Facebook with everything, and
kind of. I had a situation recently. I was at Blaine's apartment, and he had a friend over, a neighbor actually, and you know, David and I do this thing. It's only 2 months ago, maybe. We do this thing where we always try and mess with people, right? So we're always trying to, like, you know, it's all the stuff that you do before the trick, right? The stuff that, like, when you see a David Blaine show, there's so much that happens before off camera. It's a matter of, like, hyping people up or getting them intrigued about something or getting them, you know, amped up about what they're about to see. So when you actually have it on camera, they, like, go crazy because of this thing that happened, right? Like, you're trying to put it in a context, and you know, you can't always capture all that on camera because it's too long or it doesn't edit well together or whatever reason. Anyway, so like same thing in real life. It's like, you know, you hype this thing up, and so David was hyping up the phone thing I do where I make two people's phones call each other, saying that I have this power, and I was like, oh, I'm tired today, I can't really do it, and like, you know, we're going back and forth for like 20 minutes about this thing. So finally I agreed to do it, and I do it, and I have it on film actually on camera, and this girl freaks out. She starts crying, right? I have it on camera. Wow. She's bawling, right? Because we have her, like, she's a believer. And she said that she'd only felt that feeling once before in her life after a Kundalini awakening, and she said that the rest of the night she felt weak, and you know. And I'm playing into it. Like, don't worry, tomorrow you're going to wake up even more powerful than you were today. Like, you know, we're just playing into this whole scenario.
Yeah.
Anyway, a week later, I'm on Instagram and I see an unnamed magician doing a horrible version of my thing, right? Like literally horrible version, unreleased, unpublished. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I call him and I'm like, dude, why would you do that? He goes, oh, well, I met this girl and she was scared of you. And it was the same girl. She was scared of you. So I wanted to reassure that like it was all okay. And I was like, dude, you don't get it. Like that girl was given magic. She felt magic. It was real for her. And you took that and you turned it into a trick. And you made it something stupid and playful. And I was more mad that he took that experience away from her, of that real magic that she truly felt to her core for hours. She wouldn't stop talking about it for hours. And then he turned that into like something that was just like a joke, you know? That was the part that made me angry. You know, like we worked hard to like build that experience for somebody.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's not even just the fact that it was taken, it's the fact that like the effect that it had because it was taken. That's annoying.
Yeah, it's like you go to a museum and you see a painting and you're blown away by it, and then you go back the next day and then the painter's right there next to it going, oh, this was like a paint by numbers though. Like I just filled in the dots, you know, like it was pretty easy.
I didn't even paint this.
I didn't even paint this. I just took a photo and I colored on top of it.
Yeah. You know, I told him, I was like, look, if you did this thing, my thing, and at the end the two phones burst into a ball of flames, then yes, like great, you've like one-upped me and you've done it better. I was like, but did you really expect that you're going to do my thing better than I do it? And she's now seeing it a second time in a week and she's going to be like blown away. Like, come on, like, what are you thinking? You know? Yeah. And he didn't do it maliciously. I don't think it was bad intention. I just think it was stupid, you know?
Yeah.
So he's not a bad guy. It's like, use your brain, dude. Come on.
He's no longer with us, but he's not a bad guy.
He's no longer with us.
You said that, not me.
He's not a bad guy. He was a bad guy. He's not anymore.
We gotta use past tense for this story. It's funny. Xavier is apologizing. He said, "I apologize, Doug. I'm sorry."
I love Xavier. That is one talented guy. That guy has some hands.
Yeah,
he does.
He's been an X for a long time.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So Doug, how we usually do it is like I could call you, Blaze could call you. We know you. We probably reach out and say, Doug, I got a question for you. So what we like to do is open it up to the audience that's watching online. If you guys have any questions, comment. We will try to get all the questions over to Doug. But I've got a question because I was thinking about it this week. I was like, if I could ask Doug one question, what would it be?
You just get one.
So
then we end it.
So the podcast is going to be very short tonight. Here's the one question, because I was thinking about it, because you've worked with, okay, let's ask first. This is a two-parter. So who else have you worked with that I know Blaine, I know Dynamo, because I didn't know.
In terms of TV consulting or in terms of what?
Let's say TV consulting, just so that everybody knows, but...
Okay. So my first one. So I worked with Copperfield many years ago on a project. One project, wasn't like an employee of Copperfield, but we had a project probably like 21 years ago. I think it was year 2000. So before a lot of your viewers were born.
I was gonna say, Doug, you've been around for a while.
Yeah, I'm 40, so like, you know.
Yeah,
I was 20 at the time, so I think that's one. The first kind of real TV experience I got was working with Marco Tempest. So, you know, Marco was into tech. I was into tech. Marco is Swiss. I speak German fluently, so that helped. He lived in New York, and we became friends. And then Marco was producing his show called The Virtual Magician, long before virtual magic was a thing. And it was a TV show, and the first season was 6 episodes, I think it was. And I started out kind of as a showrunner, not as a showrunner, like as a, you know, kind of getting props and kind of jamming ideas a little bit. And then by season 2, I was producing it. So going to pitch meetings and everything. So I got a lot of experience from that show. It was myself and Marco, and then we had Jamie and Swiss as a writer for the show. Yeah. And it was great. It was my first trip to Vegas, actually, was with that show. Got to hang out with Johnny Thompson, got to hang out with Lance Burton. You know, I was new into magic at the time, so like for me that was like mind blowing.
You've already hit the ceiling, right? It's like,
it was
go
fun.
From there?
And then I met Blaine. First I was friends with Blaine for a few years, and then he had a TV show to do, and he asked me to work with him. So I worked with Blaine for more than a decade, 12 years, you know, still hang out and talk to Blaine a lot. And then Dynamo. I met Dynamo in Covent Garden before he was famous. I knew Dynamo since he was 16. So I was in London and he was hanging out doing his breakdancing and shuffling stuff. And then maybe a year later, I was back in London. I ran into him with his manager, and they were literally running around with a video camera, filming everything and anything. And then Dynamo's the sweetest man. He's such a sweetheart. They got a contract with, who was it? Some little handy cam camera. You know, there used to be these cameras with like a USB in the end that you could like, before the iPhone had a camera, like you could film stuff and then you stick in your computer and like you get the footage. Yeah. And it was some camera company had hired him to make some video clips. So Dynamo knew I'd consulted for other people. So he called me up and he's like, hey, you want to go to Singapore next week? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to go to Singapore. It was Formula One, you know. We had like backstage passes with everybody. We got to like hang out with Pharrell and Beyonce was performing and all these different people. Lindsay Lohan, we shot something fun for Lindsay Lohan. And it was one of those situations when we got there and like, you know, you planned all this magic and you got there and they're like, we don't want that. We want you to do this. Like, we're going to do like a blindfold drive, for example, because it fit in with Formula One. And they're like, we don't want that. We want you to levitate Lindsay Lohan. We're like, how the fuck are we going to do that? You know, like you're in a foreign country and they're like, levitate Lindsay Lohan. So we figured it out. We actually got it to work through calling a lot of people. And we had JC Sum, who's a great illusionist from Singapore, sold us like a levitation prop, like a bar stool, levitating bar stool. Yeah. Yeah. And then who else do I work with? Matt Franco. I produced Matt's show. And then a bunch of other TV shows that are like not necessarily magic related.
So which one was the worst?
So I'll give you a few stories. So the worst. So, you know, all magic shows everyone thinks consulting's like an amazing job. It's not. It's not for a lot of reasons. You know, if you love magic, it's very draining, right? So like you're under deadlines, you have to get things up and running and working. You've got, you know, there's a lot of money on the line. They're like, hey, we got to go out and shoot this thing next week. Make sure it works. And you're like, if it doesn't work, like they've just wasted tens of thousands of dollars on a shoot, right? With all the little crew and camera rentals and production time. And so it has to work. But a few stories. Shooting with Dynamo in India. India is an amazing place. I love India. It's so beautiful. It's so diverse. You can go outside and there's color and there's energy and it's amazing. But filming in India was a nightmare. Super difficult for a lot of reasons. So we were going to do a thing with an incense stick that was going to burst into flames. We're going to like a self-lighting incense stick. So we researched how this worked. I don't want to talk methods specifically. We researched how it works in the UK, and then we were told, well, we can't transport the necessary props via plane to India just because they're not allowed in the plane. So we're going to just buy props in India, and it's going to work fine. So, you know, we've got a whole production crew, and it's Robert Smith and myself getting ready to film this thing. It's hot, it's middle of the summer, and it doesn't work. And we literally spent hours trying to get this thing to work. It doesn't work. And then by the end of the day, exec producers are furious. And these are like friends. Like these producers are like people that I know and love, right? I've worked with for years, but they are furious to the point like we've never had a fight like this before, ever, about this thing not working. And Dynamo ends up getting sick because India, and he's very sensitive. His stomach's very sensitive. So we go back to the UK, and when we get back to the UK, you know, he got better, and we said, okay, in 2 weeks we're going to go back to India, which was again a huge expense. And B. Smith and I are like, I'm just going to sneak these props on the plane with us. Like, I'm not going to, like, I want this to work. So we literally stuck our props on the plane back to India. First take, nailed it, worked, you know. So look, there's lots of nightmare stories like that. It's just some things are beyond your control, and like oftentimes TV execs don't understand that, you know. You're like, look, I'm doing it exactly how we had with your props, and it just doesn't work. Right, it's nothing I'm doing. The method we tested, we have on film tested it. You know, your props stink.
Yeah, the moral of the story is don't buy props in India. No.
No. Look, I don't want to disparage India. India's amazing. It's the first magician I ever saw, ever, when I was a kid. I saw two. When I was 8 years old, I saw two magicians, and they were within 2 months of each other. One was October 14th, 1988, and one was December 12th, 1988. Those are the two magicians. First one was P.C. Sorcar Jr. You probably never heard of him. He is super famous in India, right? Like superstar. His father was a magician. He's a magician. He's now a politician, and his daughter is a magician.
I've actually watched him because one of my good friends is from India.
Right.
And so he's gone back and forth filming stuff over in India as well. So he always says to me, like, I got to bring you over to India. And then it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, so I've seen.
Yeah, hold on. I even show you this. One second. I have it right here, actually. One of my most treasured possessions.
Oh, Davey Rocket's in the chat. What's up, Davey? How you doing, man?
This is the coffee mug for P.C. Sorcar's show that I went to in 1988.
Wow.
It used to be a magic mug where like this was like black. When you put hot water in there, it went transparent and like P.C. Sorcar would appear.
That's cool.
But my mom put it in the dishwasher about a week after we got it, and it broke. So I still have this mug. It's like the original mug. This is like one of my favorite things in magic, is this mug from the first magic show I ever went to. And P.C. Sorcar is an amazing magician. If you get a chance to, like, you should watch the Paul Daniels show, P.C. Sorcar Jr. performance on YouTube. It's a guy, and the way it's routine, it's a guy that, like, it's a blindfold act. It's about 8 minutes. But when you watch him do this blindfold act, and I'm not even a fan of blindfold acts to begin with. I don't like, as a magician, being disconnected from my audience, right? You're very disconnected.
Yeah.
So it's not really my thing. But if you watch this P.C. Sorcar Jr. act on YouTube from Paul Daniels, like it's like 8-9 minutes, that guy can do anything, right? I'll tell you the basics, but people draw like a number in the board, and he immediately draws the same number, like in chalk, super fast. Yeah. Then they draw a number, and he, like, I think doubles it or something, like just in his head mathematically while he's blindfolded with dough. He's got like coins and dough and like a bandage and like a bag over his head. It's like really blindfolded. It's very convincing. And he doubles the number instantly, and then someone. He tells him to write a word in any language, and someone writes or a sentence, and someone writes something, and then he like completes the sentence in English, and then someone writes something in like Mandarin or Cantonese, and he corrects it, right? He corrects their spelling essentially, and then finishes it, and then someone draws a mark, and he turns that mark into an amazing picture, right? So like in the course of this 8 minutes, you see this blindfolded guy that's like done math. He's like spoken multiple languages. He's done amazing artwork, and it's just the style that he does it. Like the final thing is he signs this picture, this beautiful picture, but he signs it backwards as he writes. He writes Sorcar backwards. Like it just his style and the way it comes across. You think like this guy is really smart. He speaks all these languages. He can has this amazing ability to see without seeing. It's amazing.
Wow.
It was more about the feeling of the guy. Like it's one of those magic effects where you just get a feeling about the person. That what he did really kind of painted a really strong picture about the qualities of this person in this 1 8-minute piece. I love it. I actually started Googling him again last night to see other footage that's on there. But yeah, P.C. Sorcar Jr. The second magician I saw. 2 months later, I didn't remember which one was first, but 2 months later. So first I'll preface it. I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Oman, which is this OMAN, which is why they brought in this Indian magician. A lot of Indian people living in Oman. Second magician was this guy who was brought in by British Airways. This is 2 months after P.C. Sorcar. I'm British originally. My parents are very British. We're from Scotland. Used to fly British Airways a lot. And British Airways, for their customers, brought in a magician to come entertain the families of customers of British Airways. And my mom had saved a newspaper clipping about that show, because in that clipping, there's a photograph of this magician performing, and you can see my sister in the front row. I was like second row or something. I'm not in the clipping, but it's funny because I also PC Sorcar. I met him after the show, and I have a photograph of my sister and I meeting him, and he drew us like a little amazing picture and an autograph and stuff, and I have it all. But like, it's my head to the back of the camera. You see my sister's face, like all smiling, and you just see the back of my head. And in this other thing in the newspaper, you see my sister smiling, and I'm like, I'm not in there at all, right? So like in both these, first experiences, the photographs do not show me. They show the back of my head, or I'm not in them. Anyway, this guy performed magic, and I had no idea who this guy was, like none. And then my mom found the article and she gave it to me, and I read the name, and I still didn't know who the guy was, right? And then cut to, I think it was like 4 years ago, I was at the Session Convention in the UK, and I walked past a guy, and I see his name tag, and I'm like, something sounds familiar about that name, right? And I go to my room that night in the hotel, and it hits me. That's the guy I saw when I was 8 years old in Oman as a kid. That's him.
Wow.
His name is Neil Austin, right? Neil Austin, he's a British magician. So the next day at the session, I was like, Neil, I got to tell you something. I was 8 years old when I saw you. And we struck up a friendship. And I just sent him recently. I sent him a scan of that newspaper article.
That's awesome.
And he's a great guy. He's a consultant, actually. He works in a lot of people's magic, and super smart. A cruise ship guy. He does a lot of cruise ships. Yeah.
I had a question before this, but now I am so fascinated with hearing more about your upbringing, because so your family is British. You grew up in Oman. You have an American accent. Did you consciously lose your British accent, or did you not ever grow up with one? No, I would just love to hear everything about your whole life.
Got it. So I was born in Scotland. I moved away from Scotland when I was 1, moved to the Middle East, first to Oman, which is a little country below Saudi Arabia next to Yemen. Not a lot of people know Oman because it's not in the news a lot. It's very peaceful. It's like the Switzerland of the Middle East. It's very peaceful and quiet. Lived there till I was about 8 or 9 probably, because 8 I was watching PC Sorcar, probably 9. Then my family moved to Germany. My dad was working with a German company, so he was in Germany a lot. So we moved to Germany for a few years, and then when I was 12, I moved back to the Middle East to Saudi Arabia. Now, until that point, I'd been in British schools. I had a very heavy British accent. If I watched like home movies when I was a kid, I don't sound like this at all. Then when we moved to Saudi Arabia, there were only 3 kind of good Western schools there at the time. There was the German school. Well, there were more, but like the ones that were fitting for me, because I didn't speak French, but like the German school, the British school, or the American school. And I visited all 3 of them. And the American schools had the best facilities. It was the largest. It was the coolest. So my parents were like, I guess you want to go to the American school. So I went to the American school when I was 12. And that's when my accent changed. And I think it was early enough, because you meet a lot of people that like moved to the States when they were older, maybe like 18, 19, 20, and like they still have very thick accents. Yeah. But I think my accent changed when I was about 12, 13, from going to the American school. And at the time, the American school in Saudi Arabia only went to 9th grade. So if you want to continue education after 9th grade, you either have to go to boarding school or you could go to like another local school. But the local schools at the time weren't great. So everyone went to boarding school. So I went to boarding school here in the U.S. Quick funny story. I knew nothing about the U.S. First time I came to the U.S. was when I was 12. Went to Washington, D.C. because my dad did business in D.C. So my only real experience of the U.S. was Washington, D.C. My sister went to school in Switzerland, boarding school in Switzerland, and then my parents didn't like that school. So they're like, where do you want to go? You can go anywhere in the U.S. And, the only thing I knew was kind of mottos from like license plates and weird things. And New Jersey's motto was like the Garden State. So I was like, oh, New Jersey's nice because it's the Garden State. So, let's check out some schools in New Jersey, because I knew nothing about the U.S. at all, and not disparaging New Jersey. New Jersey's got some amazing places, but like, you know, had I known more,
it's not what most people from outside of America dream of going to in America. Not that there's anything bad about Jersey, but yeah,
no, it's just not necessarily like, you know, if I had a prime choice of like living anywhere in the U.S., because literally like I could have gone to school anywhere. I don't think my prime choice now would have been New Jersey. Anyway, I went to boarding school in Princeton, New Jersey, which is beautiful. At age 15, so I kind of moved out of home at 15. Went to boarding school, again, was around a bunch of international kids that were living in boarding school, also kids from Saudi Arabia and everywhere else. And I think my accent kind of got stronger there because I was living in the U.S., you know, 8 months a year, and then summer vacations and Christmas I was back in Saudi. And then after boarding school, I went to NYU. I studied finance. I was a finance major at Stern Business School. And then, became a magician.
So you became a magician and started practicing magic at what age? Was that before moving to America or after moving to America?
So, look, I had a magic kit when I was a kid, and I think I dabbled in it when I was a kid. I still have those magic kits. It was a Paul Daniels magic kit. I used to watch Paul Daniels on TV when I was a kid. Love Paul Daniels. Oh, my God, that guy was amazing. One of the best magicians ever was Paul Daniels. Yeah. If you guys know who he is, but some of your viewers might not know Paul Daniels. Watch Paul Daniels. That guy was so smart on his feet. He did more TV magic than almost anybody. And, you know, apparently he was so good that they would literally hand him a prop before he went on the show, because he did like a weekly show, and he could go out and just like riff on it. Like they show him how the prop works, and then he would have a full presentation shortly thereafter and like just kill it. That's how good he was.
Amazing.
And even when you hear him like interact with the audience, he just was so smart in his feet. He was so fast in his feet. He had banter for everything. Really, really talented guy. Anyway, so I grew up watching Paul Daniels, but didn't really get into magic. And then when my parents dropped me off at boarding school for the first time when I was 15, I came through New York, landed in New York, had like 1 or 2 nights stay in New York with my family before they dropped me off at Princeton. And there was a magic store in Times Square. And it's called Magic Max. Doesn't exist anymore. It was like one of those tourist trap shitty magic stores. And I walked in there, and actually first I was in FAO Sports, and they had a guy at the demo counter demoing stuff, and I bought a bunch of FAO Sports. I don't know who makes this stuff now. It's like dynamic coins. I bought a dynamic coins. And then I played with it in the hotel, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Let me see what other magic stores are around. And I found this one in Times Square. I went there, and there was a guy behind the counter who is a phenomenal magician. And is a very good friend of mine still today. And he was the first person I ever saw doing magic that was cool. He was stealing watches. He was vanishing cigarettes. He was doing stuff that was like cool, right? As like a 15-year-old, you're like, that is awesome. I thought magic was like hippity hop rabbits and sponge balls, but he was like scotch and soda, right? I can tell you all the things he's showing: scotch and soda, vanishing cigarette, watch steal. Those are the 3 things I remember seeing him do. And just like some coin stuff. And I was like, what books do I need to buy? How do I learn this stuff? And he's like, Bobo. So he literally put Bobo in my hands. He put Now You See It, Now You Don't by Bill Tarr. And I forget what props I bought. I think I bought some sponge balls or something. I did buy sponge balls. I know I did.
You're like, this stuff's really cool. Give me the sponge balls.
Yeah,
those sponge balls.
Well, look, I wasn't smoking, and a watch steal. Like I could do a watch steal. And I bought a scotch and soda. I did buy a scotch and soda.
Nice.
So that magician is actually Magic Ballet. So if you guys know Magic Ballet, Magic Ballet was the first magician I saw when I was 15 in New York doing cool stuff.
Nice.
His real name isn't Magic Ballet. He doesn't like me to say his real name. His real name was all over his shirt, like a name tag. So I know his real name. It's not Magic, but I love Magic. Magic is awesome. Such a talented magician. Anyway,
also like the best out of anybody when it comes to demoing effects.
Oh my God, he's phenomenal. Phenomenal. That guy can sell anything. So he worked at this Magic Max store, which was based in like Florida somewhere. It was like a mail order magic store. They had like a catalog. So I went back to boarding school. In the car ride, I practiced for French drop, showed it to my friends. They went nuts. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I could learn more. Yeah. So then I ordered from Magic Max from their catalog and ordered a bunch of stuff, like D-lights and a bunch of stuff. And it didn't come. It didn't arrive. So I call them up and I go like, hey, I ordered all this stuff and it didn't arrive. They're like, what did you order? We'll just send you another box. So I told them what I ordered. And then the guy in the phone was like, what else do you want? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, what else do you want? And I just named a bunch of other stuff like thumb cuffs and a bunch of nowadays what I would call crap, right? But back then when you know nothing about magic, I just named a bunch of stuff and he literally, whatever I said, threw it in for free. I think he was maybe getting fired that day.
Yeah, he's just like
or something.
Yeah.
He literally like just threw it all in a box, sent it to me. Meanwhile, the first package arrived, and then this super box arrived, and I was like, "Holy shit!" So I had like
double of everything,
ton of magic props, like a raven. My first raven. I got a raven then. I got it from Magic Max. Yeah. So that's kind of how I started. I had this books and stuff. Now you see, now you don't. And Bobo, I had the sponge balls, and I got a bunch of stuff for free from Magic Max, and that was like, I also used to give
all over the room at boarding school. It's like,
yeah, it was like
they just kept sending sponge balls.
I used to give tours at boarding school as well to new prospective students that were coming, right? Because they're like, oh, this guy, he can help sell the school. So it was like a favor to the school, whatever. I gave these tours. And this one kid came and I gave him a tour. He's from Switzerland. And gave him a tour. The following year, so this was probably my junior year in high school, my second year of doing magic. I started when I was a sophomore. When I was 16, we're about a month or two into the school year, and I go into like this kind of common area, and I see this kid that like I'd given a tour to, doing magic. He did like a French drop, and I go, dude, what's going on? You do magic? He goes, yeah, I'm a magician. I've been studying magic for years. And I lived in a very small boarding school with maybe 150 boarders total, boys and girls, right? So we became fast friends. He had studied under Roberto Cioppi and had all the card college books in German long before they were translated into English, right? Wow. And they were like spiral bound. They weren't even like real books. They were spiral bound. That magician, his name is Florian Klein. If you guys know who Florian Klein is. Anyway, Florian and I became like fast friends and started showing each other magic things. But I never showed magic really to anybody else. I wasn't like a performer. I didn't like showing magic to people. I just kind of kept it to myself. I liked kind of a sleight of hand behind it. Maybe I showed it to a couple friends, but I really wasn't a performer by any means. It just wasn't my personality. Then when I came to New York, I ran into a magician so I was watching a street performer in Washington Square Park, a magician by the name of Ramon. And Ramon is this Puerto Rican guy who you can find YouTube videos of him, super fascinating guy, great street magician who does an amazing Pearson's floating cigarette. That's like his thing. He's got like perfect hair for it. He's got a fro. Kind of, and he's really dramatic when he does these like kind of kung fu poses as he does it. He like jumps around and he does a coin and bottle, his quarter and bottle, and he did floating cigarette. And he's great at it, really, really great. You can find videos of Ramon, New York magician. I'm sure you could find it. And as I was watching this guy, another guy stood next to me that turns out was another magician. And he was going to NYU. He was 2 years older than me or a year older than me. And we started talking. We became friends. His name is Rory Wheeler. Again, not somebody that you guys would know, but Rory was a great magician. Did a lot of card stuff. And we became roommates, and I started hanging out with him and hanging out at the magic shop. And Rory was the first guy that I saw actually making money with magic. We went to like a nightclub one night. We went to the door, and like we were both underage, or maybe he might have. Yeah, we're probably both underage. I was definitely underage. And we walk up to the door. He does magic for the bouncers. They like let us in. And he like walked over to a table, did magic, made $50 like instantly. And then we went up to the bar and ordered drinks with that $50. And I was like, holy shit. Like that took you like 5 minutes. So he's like, why don't you try? So I literally having never performed magic for anybody that I didn't know, went and did magic for a group of people. I forget what I made, $20, $50. I made, for a 20-year-old for 5 minutes work, like a chunk of money, and was like, oh my God, this was awesome. That's easy. And that was kind of my start of like actually performing. And like, so Rory and I used to go out. We had a lot of kind of places, bars we go to all the time. And we had a few that would like, were happy for us to go around and do magic for people and make tips. And, you learn how to do magic in like a dark nightclub. Your stuff has to be really visual because it's loud and like, so that really kind of helped shape and form the magic that I like to do. It was quick, flashy, visual. I'm not a smoker, but I used to also with cigarettes. I had a whole cigarette thing because it was a great opener. Hey, can I borrow a cigarette? And I'd be like, yeah. And I'd pull a firewall, oh my God, what's going on? And I'd do a whole cigarette minute act. But yeah, that's kind of my parlay into magic. It was like nightclubs and restaurants, not really restaurants, mostly like bars and nightclubs in New York, working for tips. And all my friends that, they were doing internships at Goldman Sachs and Bear Stearns. They'd show up to school in the morning with like their suits on because they're about to leave and like, go to their internships. And, I'd show up in my pajamas because I'd been out till 4 o'clock in the morning doing magic for people. I never got an internship ever at a bank. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Just went down the magic path.
I feel like I don't know if it's a lot of magicians, but I remember feeling the same thing. Like when I was a kid, we all see Copperfield and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, one day I want to do that. And then I think life goes on, and you're like, okay, probably not going to do that for a living. I'm going to do this for myself.
Ryan, it's kind of difficult to
your audio's cutting in and
understand. Your audio's cutting out. You want to turn up a little bit?
Yeah, let me just turn.
Well, that was just me. I literally turned up my volume. I was like,
yeah, I turned him up on the stream.
I was thinking to myself, I hope that wasn't a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. It's funny though, because I was saying like, even when I got into actually performing, like I remember a local restaurant. I was working landscaping at the time. I was like 17, doing a summer job, had no interest in doing magic full time. And then I went away on a trip pre-season to doing all the maintenance stuff. And whatchamacallit, my boss saw me do magic and was like, because we had a deck of cards at this cabin and there was like nothing to do. So I did some magic for the guys, and he came back and told the restaurant owner, like, you got to have this guy there. And they asked me probably like at least a dozen times, and I was like, not interested in doing magic for money. Like I used to do it for friends and stuff. Like it's kind of that, that personal hobby. And then the first Friday night they called me and said, hey, our band canceled on us tonight. You want to come in? It's $125 an hour. And I was used to making like 14. And I was like, oh,
yep.
Never looked back. Yeah. I was there every week after that. I was like, all right, 3 hours every, Friday night or whatever for the next couple of years. I was like that money was unheard of when I was that age. So
my first real gig, like paying gig, I was in line at an ATM. I literally left Abracadabra Magic Store in 21st Street and 5th Avenue in New York, between 5th and 6th. And it was like right as like businesses were closing. I went to an ATM to get cash. And as I'm standing in line at the ATM, I had my cards in my hand. I was kind of futzing around. I don't know what I was doing. And these guys in line at the ATM were like, oh, you're a magician? And I was like, yeah, like show us something. So as we're in line, I show them something. And they go, we're about to go grab some drinks at a bar. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure, why not? So I go with them. I think a general rule in life, a good rule in life is like, say yes to opportunities, right? Like just in general, saying yes to a lot of things can like be good. So I went with them to some bar. Again, probably must have done, I don't remember. I must have done magic for the bouncer because I was definitely underage. Turns out these guys were all writers and worked for Maxim magazine, right? So they were like, "Oh, we're hosting a huge party, like Maxim's annual party. You should come do magic at the party. Why don't you come into our office and show our boss?" And I was like, "Okay." So I walk into the office, and I literally sit down with the publisher of Maxim magazine in his office. I show him some stuff. I'm like 19 at the time. I think 19. Not very good magician, to be honest, but like, I could do some card tricks and cigarette stuff. And the guy's like, "What do you charge?" And I was like, "Fuck me." So I remember one thing that I'd learned while hanging out at Tannen's. And I was hanging out at Tannen's with Simon Lovell. So I don't know if you guys know who Simon Lovell is. Simon Lovell is awesome, amazing, super talented performer. And Simon was like, "Just say something really high. So when I ask you like how much you charge, just say something really high because they'll probably say yes." And I was like, "Okay." So I was like 18 or 19. I was in this guy's office, publisher of Maxim magazine. He goes, "What do you charge?" And I go, $1,500. And he goes, "Okay." And I was like, "Fuck, that's awesome." Because back then, also, first of all, it's like 20 years ago, $1,500 was a lot of money. Like, that's a month's rent, more than a month's rent in New York at the time, right? For like a normal park 20 years ago. Like, it's a lot of money. But he literally didn't blink an eye. He's like, "Yeah, no problem." And I was like, "Fuck, awesome." So I did this gig for Maxim, and it was like a dream job as a 19-year-old. There's always like, hot girls walking around half naked. Yeah. I went to the bathroom. I was peeing next to Rob Schneider. Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran was walking around, and like girls were getting to sign their breasts. It was like, it was like this crazy party, and I made $1,500. And then that's when I was like, I can make this into a business. I can make money with magic.
I want to do this all the time.
Yeah. Not all parties are like
another Maxim show again. That was the one and only. He's like, crap.
There were a lot of bar mitzvahs after that. I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
They were
not the same vibe.
Maxim magazine parties. I remember like literally they had these girls walking around in like snow outfits with huskies, walking around, these like hot girls. I was like, "Oh, this is I don't want this night to end."
I'll do it for free next year if I can come back.
Basically.
So I saw a question come in, but I do want to ask you a question because I still didn't ask the question because I kind of two-parted it. But my question. Pardon?
What was the first part?
The first part I said, what other shows have you worked on? But but my main question is, I mean, obviously you've done a ton of consulting.
Wait, hold on, let's back up because you said you only had one question.
Yeah, but I said I got to split it into two.
Now it became a two-parter.
So
the main
that was the part
and an appetizer, right?
Yeah,
every question he asks for the rest of the night will just be one part of this amalgamated single question.
That was question 1A. This is 1B. We're still on one. Well, I'll let you know when we get to 2. But I want to know if there's one thing that you've created over the years for the TV shows and stuff, or for anything. What is the one thing that you're most proud of creating? Like, is there something that you've finished and you were like, "Dang, I can't top that," or "That's the best thing we've ever done"?
No, I never think that. I think that's a really bad mindset to have. That's very limiting, right? If you say that.
I don't mean it that way. Like, I just mean like that you were, like, in the end, just like super, super proud of, like, where maybe you thought that wasn't really going to be possible or something like that, and you guys pulled it off, or.
That's a really good question. It's funny because I've worked in so much magic and TV that like sometimes I'll watch a show and like stuff that I worked on will fool me because I forget what the method was. I'm like, how do we do that again? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Right. Something that I was really proud of. Well, one of them. So this finger phone calling thing effect was something that I came up with for a Dynamo show. So that's something I still do today, and I've improved it like 100-fold since then. But that's an effect that like literally dates back to 2013 or 2011, somewhere between 2012. I probably came up with it in 2013 and put it on the air. So one of my policies in magic is nothing is ever finished. No piece of magic is ever perfect or done. Like everything can always be improved, and it might be a very slow process, but like you can't stop thinking about your stuff ever. I think if you stop thinking about your stuff, the stuff that you do, what's the point, right? Like you're not evolving as a magician, right? Because sometimes there might be a better method, or you might think of something new. So, for example, with that effect. I came up with a method for Dynamo. We put it in the show. Then I kept playing with it and came up with better methods for it. And then about a year into like my latest method for it, I was in the shower one day and I was like, what if when they pull their fingers apart, the phones disconnect? And it took me a year of performing it like all the time for me to come up with the idea of a disconnect. And I literally barely dried off, ran downstairs, jumped to my computer, coded it, and it was working within 6-7 minutes. But it took me a year to come up with the idea, right? To get the method, like the method I had, like it wasn't a problem, but just the concept of the disconnect. So, you know, that's building the prop or making the magic's the easy part. It's conceiving of the ideas that's the hard part. And sometimes that just takes a lot of work and practice and testing. Like I do a lot of testing. I have an effect now working on now that like, again, it's kind of like a tool, and I'm going around, I'm just testing different ways of doing it. Like what works better? Does this get a better response or does this get a better response? Like A/B testing, just like they do in like Instagram. When they release features, they'll take one set of their audience, they'll give them one set of features, another set will give a different set of features, and then they test their like engagement levels. Like I do the same with magic. Even our virtual show, when Ryan and I first launched our virtual show, after every show, we sent out a survey, and we asked questions like what worked, what didn't work, what was your favorite piece, what didn't fool you, what did fool you. Scale of 1 to 10, how would you tell your friends? I think it was like 5 questions. Like we came with a bunch of different questions. But collecting data is really important. Like if I was to like recommend like one recommendation in this entire thing is like data is your friend. You collect data on stuff, right? Like that's how you get better. And it could be subjective data, like, hey, like people reacted better this time than they did last time. I mean, that's data, right? It's your judgment, but it's still data. It doesn't have to be like actual numbers, right?
For sure.
Like test stuff. You know, I used to also go around and you know, I'd do a gig and I'd challenge myself, okay, like I'm going to do like a vanishing deck, for example, something with a deck that vanishes. And my entire time in that gig, I gave myself a little exercise, like where can I make the deck reappear? That's my entire job today, even though I'm working and doing close-up magic for the next how many hours. Every time I do that trick, I'm going to try and make the deck appear somewhere different and see what gets the best response. And when you challenge yourself like that, all of a sudden, you start to come up with weird and crazy ideas that then, you know, become the new way you do the effect, because all of a sudden you were forced to do it because you didn't want to do it the same way, where it appear in your pocket or wherever it appears, you know. So collecting data is really important. Testing, collecting, polishing, nothing's ever done. So I guess that I call it connect. That connect trick is probably one of my favorite things I've come up with. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I'm really proud of on the TV stuff. But you know, a lot of it's teamwork. I can't like claim to a lot of it because it's stuff that like, you know, you hang out with David, and David's a genius. He's an amazing magician. Blaine, unbelievable. Or Aussie, you know, I spent a lot of time with Aussie. We talk magic and ideas and concepts. Yeah, these things come out of like jam sessions, you know.
For sure, for sure. So one of the questions that came up, please, if you can bring it up, was, let me go back. It was a little bit ago that came up.
Was it Cedric's?
I think it was Cedric. I'm trying to see
Which Cedric?
Favorite non-magic book?
Oh, yes.
Ooh, that's a good one. Favorite non-magic book. I'm reading a great book right now. It's not my favorite, but it's the Rob Zabrecki book that Aussie recommended to me. It's great. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but like if you haven't read it, it's phenomenal. Favorite non-magic book, I love Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Great book. I know. Also, a lot of the books I've read in the past several years. Oh, and another great book, Born a Crime, Trevor Noah. That's an amazing book. I would recommend the Audible book if you have a choice between Audible and not an actual physical book. Born a Crime is amazing, and some great lessons to be learned, because here's a guy for magicians. Like, you read this as a magician, that you can start to draw parallels. Here's a guy that literally the reason it's called Born a Crime is he was born. His mother's black, his father is Swiss, white Swiss guy, and at the time that was highly illegal in South Africa, right? So you weren't allowed to be, like, black people couldn't be sleeping with white people. So he was born as an illegal kid, and he didn't have an identity. He didn't fit into any group. White people thought he was black people thought he was white. He was an outcast. And the whole book kind of describes how he navigated that territory and how he was able to use language. He's a very talented linguist, because there's so many different languages in South Africa. You know, you've got the clicking language, and you've got, you know, Swahili and all these different languages. He was able to speak multiple languages and kind of fit into groups. And, you know, he's a highly intelligent guy. And the book is fascinating and entertaining. And it really teaches you about how you can connect with an audience, even when you are an outsider. So I think that's my favorite book. And I would recommend the Audible of Born a Crime, because Trevor Noah reads it himself. Nice. And he injects so much personality into it, and funny voices, and you know, there's some sad moments, some funny moments, and you know, you really start to appreciate him as a performer a lot after reading his story. He literally came from the ghettos of South Africa, and look where he is today. I mean, it's a real success story, and the guy's a genius. So
he also did some of the best news reporting during COVID. I think that his way of adapting to everything being locked down was some of the best. You know?
I have so much respect and admiration for that guy. And, you know, he grew up in very, very difficult circumstances. His mother was murdered. His father was an alcoholic. I mean, you know, there's a lot of tragedy there. But here's a guy that, like, clawed his way through, starting with, like, literally being at a deficit compared to everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And look where he is today. So yeah, Born a Crime, favorite book.
Definitely add that in. I always love listening to Audible as well when the author reads it themselves, because it's so much better when they read it. So that's definitely going on the list. So I will keep you posted as I read that.
Now we've hit our first hour mark, which means our first segment is coming up. But we just got a question from Colin Cloud, so I'd like to jump in and get his question. Yes. So, given your vast knowledge, experience, and the fact that you've watched and worked with more magicians than most people, what are the top 3 unique tricks, performances / routines you've seen?
First of all, I love Colin. Colin is amazing. The best. So talented. I've had a chance. I've done shows with Colin. I worked with Colin in Scotland. We had a gig together in Scotland, and he killed it. He's so good. Colin's one of those guys that gets on stage and he just, like, owns the audience instantly. So quick on his feet. My favorite magicians are all people that can think on their feet and can take advantage of situations. And, like, Colin, I love you.
One of the hardest working and most talented people I've ever met.
Super, super talented. So most amazing magic, unique magic. I'm blanking his name now. German guy. He did the cardboard box sword illusion. God, what's his name? I'm blanking on it. I just watched this recently. Another amazing YouTube video you guys should watch. It's about 9 minutes again. His son did a lot of crossbow stuff. He used to do crossbow stuff. Hans Moretti. Oh my God, Hans Moretti. I don't want to ruin it, because you watch this video. Google Hans Moretti cardboard box illusion. Just YouTube that. I'm not going to give it away. It's a cardboard box illusion where you get in a box and they stab you with things. Yeah. Swords, canes, whatever they want to, whatever it is. For the Hans Moretti cardboard box illusion, number 1, I'm still fooled.
I think this is the one I've watched where it's like they just it's like, no, this is not possible anymore.
Yeah, but there's a cooler ending to it than that also. First of all, it's like really impossible, really fooling. It literally is a cardboard box and it's spectators shoving them through. It's not even his wife. I think his wife Helga, I think that was her name, or is her name. Didn't really direct them. Like literally 2 guys from the audience are like just shoving these things wherever they want. But then there's an amazing ending. So that's probably my number 1 weird piece of magic that I recommend that you watch. Also, that PC Sorkar Jr. piece on Paul Daniels. I love that. Paul Daniels' show had a lot of really awesome pieces of magic. There's another one. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. It's a French guy who would build this robot on stage like a Frankenstein. And then the robot came to life. And I don't remember the guy's name or the act, but that act is awesome. Super original. Maybe someone in the chat comments can say who that is. But it was a French thing. It was from the 80s. Love that stuff. Marco Tempest. Look, when Marco came out, I recently watched a video on Instagram, and it was someone like pulling lights in and out of an iMac. And I was like, oh, Marco did that 25 years ago. Like, it looked the same, and he did it much, like, there was a better routine to it. Like, it was better. And I went looking through Marco's stuff, and like for his time, Marco Tempest did amazing things. He had a two-man act with another guy. It was called like Universal. What was it called? Universal Hands, Universal Arts. Maybe Universal Arts or thing. I think was the name of the act. But he basically did this, like, he combined his breakdance. He's an amazing breakdancer with manipulation. And he had another guy who was smaller than him, kind of had his hands underneath his hands, so it looked like four hands, and they did this awesome manipulation act with this billiard ball, a white bikini ball that would vanish from here and appear in the other guy's hand. I think the guy was even a magician. His name's Martin something. I never met him. He was a friend of Marco's. But this ball would just like vanish back and forth. It was done to like what was the name of the song? Great song. I'm blanking on the name of the song. But anyway, great music for the time. Just super creative. And there was nothing else like that, right? So I think those are probably my three. They're kind of from...
It's funny. This week, I wrote down, let's see if we can say that, Marco Tempest on my phone, because I was thinking about other people that we could get on the show. And I was like, I remember, watching all of his stuff years ago and being like, yeah, this guy is way ahead of his time.
Yeah, you also did that in a shared document that I have as well, and I was so confused why Marco Tempest's name just popped up as the new header for our note.
I didn't know that it was shared. Good thing I haven't put anything else on there. But
Marco was definitely ahead of his time. He's doing more like speaking engagements now, I think.
Yeah.
But he's a smart guy. He's a super smart guy. Very creative. Yeah, I've always thought he was great. Yeah.
Nice.
You should talk.
Well, Doug, I think it's that time.
It is that time. You know what time it is, Doug?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. It's time for 20 questions. It's time for 20 questions. Yeah, it's time for 20 questions. It's time for 20 questions. Yeah, put 2 minutes on the clock. 2 minutes on the clock. Put 2 minutes on the clock. 2 minutes on the clock. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
12 seconds a question. Is that how it works?
This is all question one still.
This is all question one. We're on question 1X.
Yeah. The alphabet restarts, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
then we have to go AA, BB, CC.
Yeah.
Or no, AB,
A,
AA, AB, AC. Yeah. All right.
So you have 2 minutes. We're going to ask you just rapid fire questions. So first thing that comes to your mind, just to get to know you a little better, Doug.
Okay.
Are you ready? So we'll see how many questions you can get through in 2 minutes.
Yes.
And your time starts now.
Favorite color?
I like color combinations more than colors. Orange and gray.
Ooh, biggest pet peeve?
People that steal original ideas.
Where did you grow up?
Already covered that.
Yes. What always makes you laugh?
My dog. Easy.
Secret talent?
Secret talent. I don't know. Secret talent. delaying answers and questions. How about that? There we go.
This one you've already answered. First time you ever saw a magic trick that was Sokar, right? So, yeah. So,
if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Dream performance venue.
Don't have one. Thought about it a lot. Don't have one. I'm more into like performing for people, different people than venues.
Most cherished memory.
Just spending time with my family, my parents. I left home when I was very young, 15. So just growing up, I grew up in this great place and loving family and that kind of stuff.
Favorite food?
Ooh, I like macaroni and cheese. I like sausage.
Oh, you're gonna love our next segment. All right.
Yeah. Favorite movie?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Favorite pizza topping?
Used to be pepperoni, but I'm a vegetarian now with strong vegan tendencies, so I like vodka sauce in my pizza.
Favorite magician?
Aussie. Aussie's one of my favorites for sure.
Aussie is incredible. Yes.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with
Aussie.
Aussie's great.
We got through 14 in 2 minutes. So,
Yeah,
Doug, you failed.
You did, Doug. You did get through the least amount of questions of all of our guests.
Only made it through 13.
we tripped you up with secret talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. Like, what is my secret talent? Let me ask my wife. Ish, what's my secret talent? She doesn't even know.
I thought Alexa was going to answer.
Yeah, exactly.
What is my secret talent? I don't know. Like, honestly, like, I think I don't necessarily agree with having secret talents. I think if you have a talent, you should use it somehow to your advantage.
Well, I know that you're a pretty crazy skydiver, right?
Yeah, so it's not very secret. I mean, I post
No,
I probably should make it secret so that, like, when I have to get through, health insurance or life insurance or whatnot, that's not an issue.
Exactly.
But,
I've never been skydiving.
You should. Skydiving is amazing. Skydiving
No,
is.
I'm saying for you with insurance, you just gotta,
yeah.
no, I've never been.
What's skydiving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
An airplane? I'm afraid of heights.
I am afraid of heights, actually. I don't like heights.
That's pretty crazy. So you don't like heights, but you love jumping at
You're
air.
afraid of heights and you skydive?
But it's different. So, like, let me ask you this: when you're in an airplane, you look out the window. If you say to yourself, "Oh my God, I'm really high," like, are you afraid of that height? Either of you?
No, I guess not.
No.
But
right?
I imagine if I was falling towards the earth, then I might have a different perspective.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Really high. What's the fastest way to get down?
Well, if I'm on top of a building and I'm like at the edge and it's like, you're 20 stories up, like, that's really scary to me because you fall and you're dead in like 3 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But when you're skydiving, the higher you are, the more time you have to like fix a problem or to like think of something or to like use your body to fly to like somewhere that's softer to land or whatever your tactic is that you're going to use to like survive this fall. So like in skydiving, once you hit 2,000 feet, 2,000 feet is kind of like your minimum deployment altitude for our main parachute, right? Once you're below 2,000, you want to use your reserve parachute first because it opens faster. But, below 2,000 feet, you're kind of in a danger zone, right? It's like if something was to happen to the plane or you have to like get out of the plane quickly, like below 2,000, you're in like sketchy territory. Above 2,000, height is your friend, right? And once you understand that, then like it's not scary anymore. And when you look out the window, you're not thinking about it being high, right? Like that, the height doesn't mean anything to you. On top of a building, you look over the edge, you see people, you can hear the car passing. Like that height is real. It feels real. Like I don't like that. Even saying something like a ladder, it doesn't feel good. But like on a plane, like that's not high. Oh, here's my secret talent.
Yes.
My wife just said it. Cooking. I love to cook.
Oh, nice.
I like to make things with my hands and cooking. I like to cook stuff.
There's an ear. So I think Adam Blumenthal always posts these crazy photos of like these immaculate dinners that he makes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've stayed with Adam at least a half a dozen times. And first, he's never cooked anything while I've been there. It's always like pizza. What's that pizza place by him? Artichoke pizza. It's always like artichoke pizza, or there's a few little cafes and stuff around there where he lives. Or it's and I'll go to his fridge. I'm like, I wonder what Adam's got in the fridge. He's got to have something. And there's nothing ever in his fridge. I'm like, how do you cook these immaculate meals?
Because he's eaten it all. He's eaten it all. Yeah. Dennis Bear is also a phenomenal pastry chef. If you follow Dennis Bear, but he has the largest hands. But he makes the most delicate pastries. He's incredible. Like he will go on. Most people go to like France to hang out with magicians and magic convention and whatnot. Dennis will go to Paris to do like a pastry tour for the week and like, learn from different chefs. He comes to New York, he stays in my apartment, and before he comes, he's already put a list together of like all the different pastries and cake shops and that are new since the last time he came here. And like, we'll go out and we'll consume thousands of calories of like sugary things, and he'll write notes about them. And he's super talented, Dennis. Oh, wow, unbelievable.
And
I think a lot of
about the pastries.
Enjoy cooking because you're building stuff with your hands. It's my kind of joy from magic started with working with my hands. I like to fix things. I like to wrench on cars and stuff, motorcycles. I like working with my hands, and cooking's it's the same thing. You're making something. You're working with your hands.
What is your favorite dish to cook?
Oh, I make these amazing black bean tacos. They're really, really good. But it's not just the tacos. I make the pickled onions. I make this like chipotle adobo mayonnaise sauce. It goes on top. It's a whole thing. But they look beautiful. They taste beautiful. They're healthy. So that's probably my favorite thing.
Nick says you probably make a killer mac and cheese.
I did a mac and cheese the other night as an experiment. I like scientific approaches to cooking. So J.L. Kenji Lopez is a really great chef who has this great book. It's like the science of cooking, and he literally experiments with like different temperatures and what if you do this or this, different scenarios. So I follow his food stuff a lot because I like that scientific approach. And like sous vide, I love sous vide because you can cook things at precise temperatures for X amount of time. And I like that precision. That's like the German part of me. I like things to be like very precise, to measure things and they're like weigh, a cup of flour, and I go, wow, a cup of flour. Like if you put it in, sometimes it's a little bit more packed depending how you got it. So like for me, a cup of flour, you weigh it, like I have a scale and I weigh it to the gram and put it in there,
Super analytical. Yeah. So mostly vegan, but then you can't cut out mac and cheese because that's.
No, I'm vegetarian. I joke about strong vegan tendencies because I'm only recently been vegetarian. Although if I go to a steakhouse, I'm definitely ordering a steak. I love steak.
Okay.
I think that's where I'm at as well. It's like, well, I'm out. I need to do this now.
But I'm trying to be healthier and eat better. So I'm like 99% vegetarian. But like if I do go to a restaurant that has something phenomenal that's not vegetarian, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you think that it's weird that we're so close, Blaze, but I feel like with all this cheese talk.
I feel like with all this cheese talk, I think it's going to happen whether we like it or not.
I don't think there's a way that we can't do this now.
I think there's no way we can avoid it.
I love. I had a show on Tuesday at 6 p.m., virtual show. And at the same time, I had the opportunity to go to a cheese tasting where a chef was going to teach you how to like taste cheese. And I love cheese. I was like, fuck. The one time I have like that opportunity, I have a virtual show, so I couldn't do it.
You love cheese, and you know what we love, Doug.
Lasagna! What's your favorite genre of lasagna? Meat. Lasagna. Veggie. Lasagna. Plain. Lasagna. Saucy. Lasagna. What's your favorite genre of lasagna?
Oh yeah, what a song!
Was that your voices?
That's Ryan right there. That's
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we're a real show, man.
That's your hidden talent right there. Seriously.
That is every week someone goes, "Who is that? Where did you guys get these from?" And I just did 3 times.
I can smell it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
So, Doug, the most important question of the evening: what's your favorite genre of lasagna?
And we just lost Blaze.
I'll take credit for that. Let me reconnect him real quick.
Yeah.
Right. My favorite genre of look. Here we go.
There we go.
I got you.
Genre of lasagna.
Honestly,
Doug took his fingers apart there.
It was like, oh, okay, I'm back.
I definitely appreciate a good meaty lasagna in the winter. Although, like I said, I've been mostly vegetarian for the past 4 months. So I really haven't had lasagna.
Did Aussie get you into it?
Talking to Aussie definitely helped. First of all, my wife is vegetarian, so that was the original flame. But Aussie is vegan. So we talk a lot about food. It's funny, Aussie and I'll hang out, and then during COVID, we'd hang out, and then I'd drive him home, and then we'd literally sit in the car because whatever place closed at 11 p.m. in New York, so we'd literally sit outside his apartment in my car, and we'd spend another 2 hours, 3 hours talking about food and recipes and stuff. Part of the fun with hanging with Aussie is we don't talk magic all the time. We'll play backgammon. I love backgammon. David, Aussie, and I play backgammon all the time. So we play backgammon, talk magic, and food. That's pretty much our existence.
So a meaty lasagna in the wintertime.
Yeah.
However, in the summertime.
I'm not really a lasagna person in the summer. I think lasagna is it's like a dense, hot meal that fills your stomach when it's cold out. That's kind of my ideal lasagna. It's not really like a
seasonal is a new genre we've not encountered so far.
Yeah.
That's nice.
The summer watermelon lasagna.
I'm yet to try a vegetarian lasagna because until recently I've just, I haven't really been presented with or wanted to eat lasagna.
I almost brought lasagna on the call tonight because my neighbor made us a vegetarian lasagna last night, but my fiance ate most of it and said, chopped it all up basically and said, "You won't want to bring it on camera." So, okay. So, but I will probably be having that after the show tonight.
Some vegan lasagna or veggie?
Vegan, vegan lasagna. But reheated vegan lasagna.
So Colin's favorite favorite genre of lasagna was reheated. He said it's better after it's been microwaved.
It's true. It has to the flavors have to amalgamate. They have to.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of amalgamation, we have a follow-up question to the lasagna.
Here's the crazy thing. I don't have a microwave. Is that crazy?
Are you afraid of the microwaves? Is that why? Or
no? So it's funny. So when I bought my house, they just put this new kitchen in. It was beautiful. And I walked in, I checked out the house, and I said, first thing I said in the kitchen, I said, "Where's the microwave?" And I said, "Oh, maybe I'm going to have to take one of the drawers out or something and put it into the island or something." And my fiance, her parents said, "Buy whatever you want for the house. It's on us." So I was like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a microwave, no question." And then a week in, I was like, "I probably need a lawnmower and stuff because I've got a pretty big yard." And so they gave me a brand new lawnmower and weed whacker and stuff. And I was like, well, now I can't get a microwave. I'm not going to ask them for a microwave now. And so it's probably a month in by that point, and I was like, I haven't used the microwave at all. And my fiance never had a microwave growing up. They just always cook things in the oven or on the stove and stuff. And so I just got used to not using it. And now the only time I've said, I wish I had a microwave is when I had a hot chocolate and it was cold. And I was like, I wish I had the microwave.
You could just put it on a pot in the stove and just reheat it.
That's what I did. But I mean, it takes a little bit longer to do that. But that's about the only time I've said, I think I need a microwave.
Yeah. it's convenient.
It's very convenient, yeah. Especially for leftovers. Because I feel like you're not necessarily recooking them the way you would if you were to throw them into a pan.
I love it. Davey Rocket said the air fryer.
That's true. That's true. Air fryers are the wave. That's true.
But in New York City apartment, it's like you're limited by how much, countertop space you can afford to. I love an air fryer, but just I'm not going to use that enough to warrant like that much counter space in my kitchen to hold an air fryer.
It's like 100 square feet you just lost right there.
Mine has its own like personal drawer space, like under one of the drawers by the stove, and pop that out on the counter and good to go. So that'll be coming in handy tonight.
So on the amalgamation, we have to ask the follow-up question. We always do. So Ryan, do you want to do the follow-up question this week?
I could do it. This is a 1.6392AB. Now we're on. Still under the 1, but if you had one winterized seasonal meat lasagna and you made a second seasonal meat lasagna and you put the second one on top of the first one, Doug, would you have one lasagna or two?
You would have one lasagna if it's on top.
One lasagna.
You heard it here first, folks.
Interesting.
Yeah,
our most analytical guest.
Spoken. Well, there's a classic version of that, I think, with sandwiches. If you like cutting a sandwich in half, is it one sandwich or two sandwiches? There's a whole thing about that. I think it's still one because lasagna is a layered-based dish, and
so just more layers.
You've just added more layers, right?
What
if I made half a lasagna, like it didn't fill the whole dish, but called it one lasagna, and I made another half lasagna in a different dish because it didn't fill the layers. And I put those halves on top of each other, and now it kind of fills the whole dish because it wasn't the full depth before. Is that one or is that two? Well, that's
two lasagnas, one dish.
Yeah.
Straight away, two lasagnas, one dish.
This is going to become something bad now.
Let me ask you: Are your lasagnas asymmetrical? Is that why you consider them like the
triangular?
Layers,
actually,
yeah,
the layers don't match up. Like what's up with your layers?
The thing is, if you have say an even number of pasta layers, right? Or no, if you have an odd number of pasta layers, then you would end at pasta again, right? So then if you were to then have pasta to pasta contact with no connecting, umbilical cord of sauce.
So you're worried about the crunch in the middle because you've got double pasta?
Pasta.
Pasta. Read all about it.
You won't because let me ask you: when you make your first lasagna, at the very top, you put on a cheese layer, right, and maybe some like bechamel and some tomato. Like there's definitely it's not going to be pasta to pasta. That's a whole separating layer. Maybe you just make shitty lasagna. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't had lasagna in a really. I can't have dairy, so this is all speculation, to be honest.
Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's just leave it at that. You don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about. No.
Blaze has never eaten lasagna. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest, guys. No, I don't. I can't remember the last time I had lasagna because I was vegan and gluten-free throughout all of high school, and I don't think that I've had a lasagna since then because I've still not had cheese. So I think I must have been in like 6th grade or 7th the last time that I had a lasagna. So it's a distant memory at this point.
Have you ever seen that Jimmy Kimmel segment where they go around asking people in LA if they're gluten-free or not? And everyone, they ask them in juice shops, different places. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gluten-free," and then they ask them a follow-up question, the 1B, what is gluten? And you just see these people struggle, like they're so anti-gluten, and none of them have like celiac disease. They're just like, gluten is bad, and they go, "What is gluten?" And you just see them go, it's an amazing segment. Google it.
Those are definitely the best segments on Kimmel when he's like. Oh, did you watch the Super Bowl game this weekend and stuff? And people just lie. They're like, it's a huge game. I absolutely love it. They're like, oh, what a comeback by like the Dolphins, right? And the Dolphins are like the last place team in the league. And they're like, oh yeah, it was nuts.
He went around Fashion Week asking people if they like a certain band. He just made the name up, and then he, when they agree that they love them, he's like, "Oh, what's your favorite song?" He like really like gets into.
They just have to make something up now. They're caught in a lie. Yeah. I acknowledge that there are many people that actually can't have gluten, celiac and things like that. But there was a podcast I was a guest on a few years ago, and one of their merch items is this shirt that they sell. And it says gluten, something attention seekers are allergic to. Is the definition.
That's awesome.
I think that kind of sums up that Jimmy Kimmel segment.
Yeah. So you guys heard it here first. We are now working on some Magic After Dark lasagna merch.
So this is actually a real thing.
Actually happening. So Doug, the lasagna song has become so popular amongst viewers and guests. Guests have messaged us weeks later saying that the lasagna song is stuck in their head.
You got to get the waveform of the lasagna song, like imprinted, like inside the shirt somewhere.
Oh,
yeah. The same way, like how Michael had the code as part of the design for his NFT. We need to have the waveform as part of our merch.
That'd be awesome. Let's do it. But so
very meta,
Very meta, yeah. See, this is what we need here is this analytical German mind. Yeah. So where did the programming come in your life? Was that something that you were interested in after getting into Magic?
No, I was always into tech. I was always into phones. When I was in high school, I used to read 2600, which was like a hacker magazine. Didn't really know how to code, but I always thought the articles were interesting and the phone stuff was interesting. And I've always just been really into like phones in general, long before like cell phones. I actually had a friend of mine in high school stole what's known as a COCOT. No one's going to know what that is. A COCOT, C-O-C-O-T, which is a coin-operated customer-owned telephone, which is basically a payphone that you could buy from like AT&T or Bell or whoever your provider was, and you could put it inside your restaurant, and like you would get the money that goes into the payphone. So I had a friend that somehow stole one. I had one in my dorm room, like a disconnected COCOT payphone. So I was always into like phones and stuff, always, but didn't really have the technical know-how. And then the internet came around, and I just started reading about coding because I knew I wanted to build something. I had an idea for a piece of magic, and knew very little about coding. And I just started reading manuals online, and I taught myself. And it's funny. Tamariz, I'm a huge fan of Tamariz. Tamariz talks about within the 7 veils of magic how the audience can sense certain things about a performer, and he has 7 of them. And one of them is that the audience can sense that the performer knows the history and everything about this piece of magic. The magic has a lot of depth to it for the performer. It means something, even if you don't say that out loud. Like the performer, the audience gets it, that like you are an expert in this particular thing, and I believe that. That's one of his 7 veils, 7 veils of magic. And when you start to like code stuff and build a piece of magic with code, you know everything about it, and you get to like tweak it. Again, like going back to another thing, like nothing's ever finished or polished. When you build something with code, like you get to go out and test it, and then like, something wasn't great. And you're like, well, what if I rewrite that to do this? And then like you go out and test it again, and you get to beta test that stuff constantly until it's a great piece of magic. Yeah.
I think that's a gold nugget. I'm just saying.
I agree. I think it definitely is straight up a mic drop right there. Yeah. That's a real gold nugget.
I know you said it before, but like that your magic is never done. And I think that's great because it's, it is something that you do your routine for someone or a group or something, and something is different about it that time. And you go back and you're constantly tweaking and stuff. And it's, I know that the one routine I call my signature piece took like 6 years to come up with the method of it. And then in like a year, it changed like 4 times the method of like how to do it. And now it's at a place where I'm happy, but I was like driving 2 weeks ago and went, I wonder if I could build this to do this instead. It would be so much better, so much cleaner than what I'm doing now. And so, again, now it's another process again. So
yeah. There's a quote, and I might be misattributing it. I think it's Gaby Pareras that was saying that magicians are a unique type of artist in that, unlike a painter where you have a completed work of art that then goes up into the museum, as a performance artist, magicians are more like gardeners, where we're kind of perpetually tending to our garden and continually plucking out more weeds and discovering more weeds as time progresses and more ways in which we can improve our harvest,
Yeah, I think the difference is in the medium, right? Because the painter will make a piece of art and like it's done and it gets framed, it gets put on a wall, right? It's not like they necessarily have time to like have one piece of art that it would be interesting actually. One piece of art that evolves over time, and maybe some artists do have that, but it's just not what.
I guess performance art in general that applies to just any kind of performance,
But with painters, you can see style evolving, and like Asi, had a lot of. I've been learning a lot about art through Asi because Asi is an amazing artist, and you just have a conversation with him about illustrations and drawing and painting, and you can see even his style. We talk about his style and how that's evolved compared to his older stuff. I collect Cenk art. I have 30 pieces, maybe more, of Cenk paintings, and they're all different. And you can see how his stuff changed over time, right? Like even the medium, like the pastels in the beginning, and then later on in life, he used a lot of oil paints that were mixed with glue, which is another story. But like you can see his style also changed, things he painted. So things evolve over time. Artists evolve over time. Magic evolves over time. But as long as you keep working on your stuff and what makes you happy, I think that's important.
Not to make you disclose anything you may not want to, but did you ever delve into the hacking world, whether as a white hat or gray hat or otherwise, in that sense, outside of magic?
The stream is now done, ladies and gentlemen. This is behind curtains.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. All right.
No, look, I think like to answer it honestly, it's like, look, all this stuff. Look, I'll draw a parallel. As a magician, you can use your same exact skills to cheat at cards, or to switch a diamond out in a store, or to do X, Y, and Z. Right? You can misuse your skills. Now, I'm not the guy. I believe in karma, and I don't need to steal from people. And I definitely have my lines that I draw in the sand when it comes to magic and what I would feel comfortable doing to somebody. There are things that I could do that would be very invasive. But my general rule of thumb is if I would be okay with someone doing that to me, then I would do it. And I'm very data sensitive. Like I'm super data sensitive. So there was a product that came out that again, I won't mention names, but it was basically a way that you could clone someone's WhatsApp.
I remember this, yeah.
And then the effect was that they sent a message to a friend, and you could tell them what the message was or something. And I was horrified, right? Because number one, look, not a great method. But number two, it's so invasive. If someone did that to me, I would be livid. That you just took, like, literally my entire WhatsApp is now on your phone, and you can see every message you ever sent via WhatsApp, every image. Like, not cool. I would never, ever even consider doing that to somebody. So yeah, look, do I dabble in the hacking stuff outside? Yes, but it's not stuff that I would necessarily do in a way that would ever be harmful to somebody ever. It's just not in my being to do that to somebody. but yeah, you can misuse all these talents to do things that that you shouldn't do.
It's a skill. So it's a skill set you've learned, but aren't actively like tried to
no, look,
to
it's
use
a
in
skill
any
that I
way.
use,
Yeah.
that I use for magical purposes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
look, I'm not trying to say that I'm some phenomenal hacker. I found my own things and weird ways of doing things, and I've gotten access to certain tools and technologies, and I just try and find magical ways of using them. And sure, those tools can be misused, but the truth is, like I'm lucky in many ways because I have access to certain things that I shouldn't have access to, but like I do, and I have to be vague here, but the reason I'm given access is because the people that have access, that have given me access, trust that I wouldn't misuse them, right? So,
Yeah.
There's a responsibility that comes with that stuff. In Magic, also, there's a responsibility to not clone your spectators' WhatsApp. Like you have responsibilities as a person, like you just.
I remember hearing when that came out, and I had the same feeling. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's super invasive of people's privacy and stuff. But my question now is: so was the U.S. election? No, I'm joking. Stay away from that. But I like someone a little while ago had a question because I met you years ago. First, I met you, I think, and I don't know if we. Maybe I'll talk about this off camera, but I don't think we had the greatest first impression.
I remember our meeting because I was staying with Dave at a convention somewhere, and you had some product or something, right?
Yeah, so I remember it was in Blackpool.
Card clip? Was it a card clip or something?
Clips, yeah. So we were in Blackpool, and it was myself and Damien O'Brien. And we had brought out this new card clip called the Shield. So it was this full thing that covered the entire deck. And you may not have known who I was at that time. And I was releasing card clips for a while, and I had talked to Blaine. Actually, speaking of that, I actually have something for Blaine here still that because of COVID and stuff, I haven't been able to give to him. So this is a piece of pad made for him with the it's upside down now. Oh, there we go. So it has the decade poster.
Oh, that's awesome.
Super nice. Wow.
But yeah, so split spade on that side, and then
I'm trying to remember the story. Was it like an alligator skin card clip thing?
So Blaine had called or messaged me through Madison, because Madison had a bunch of card clips from me and stuff, and he went to Blaine and showed him they were hanging out. And Blaine was like, okay, I want 50 of these, right? So I was like, oh, okay. So I start like trying to find all this alligator and everything, and then it didn't end up happening because he got 5 clips instead of 50 from Versace or something crazy. Something else happened, and so you were working with Dynamo at the time, and so I'm out, and a couple. Andy Nyman said. Hey, I want to see this new type of card clip that you guys have, because it was literally you pressed a button and the top opened and the deck came up.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we had worked on it for a while with prototypes and stuff, and then found someone over in Scotland that could make the metal there and stuff. And so then you came over and you were like, what is this? Blaine made these first and stuff. And I'm like, I'm 100% cool with Blaine. Like, he wants to order 50 of these. And then
I think Blaine might have asked me to tell you that or something. I don't remember. A long time ago, because look, also David forgets. Like, David gets approached by a lot of people. Everyone like work with David, and like oftentimes these deals get forgotten about or something. So I don't remember the details. I'm not going to throw David under the bus either. But I do remember. I remember seeing this alligator clip, and I was like, "You mean this?" And I had one in my hand because I still have it. I have 2. I was like, "We made these. Like, this is something that like David wanted to sell."
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that was So that was the thing. I was like, David asked me like last week to make them all for him, and you were like, and then what happened though was like after you left, like. Security had already come over to us and was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we said, we're just showing Andy these card clips. We already had him at a booth in the convention, but it was done. We were heading out for the afternoon. and Andy asked to see them. So we pulled them out of the bag and we're showing Andy and stuff. And then you came over, we had our little confrontation, and then you left, and like a minute later, security comes over, and the guy is freaking that we're selling card clips outside of the convention and stuff.
Nothing to do with me, by the way. I'm not.
But that was the first thing that, we're like, Doug.
No.
Doug got security.
No.
So,
the way I tell I just come to you and be like, dude, like, come on. I'm not going to be like, go tell him.
No. So, well, that's
that
good.
Guy over there is selling card clips illegally.
That's literally what people thought, because the people around us was like, did Doug just go and like tell? So Doug, I'm glad we burned that now. We're good.
No, we were like, no.
But it was funny. So they were like, you can't do this. Like, I forget what the guy's name is that runs the Blackpool Convention, Steve or something like that. Was like, he's like, if he knew what you guys were doing, we're like, we are literally not selling anything. He just wants to see the product. It's the same as us doing a card trick that's going to come out next month, to someone in the foyer. Like, that's it. That's exactly what we're doing. And they were like, we want your bag. We're going to put in the closet here. I'm like, well, I got my laptop, my camera, all these cards. Like, I got like a $10,000 backpack. I was like, I'm not putting in your closet. So they escorted me and Damien O'Brien out of Blackpool. And like, they were like, you guys you could get banned for life and stuff. We're like, give me a break.
Yeah. So not me. Sorry.
Yeah. So we went to the Ruskin and sold out of card clips at the Ruskin. It's like,
I wish I could tell you, how that came about, but that's not how I operate. I remember meeting you and like hearing about the clip, and I was like, dude, we just made these. We were just about to sell these things.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, by that time, I had already been selling them for like a year. But I mean, I was nobody. Like, I was working for Illusionist at the time when I started making them.
Who?
For Illusionist.
Who's that?
Illusionist. It's some online company thing. I'm not really sure, but
there's an E in it, right?
Yeah, there is an E.
I think
yeah.
So
they make that stack watch or something, right?
Yeah, something.
That's the best watch ever.
It's one watch on top of another watch.
Totally examinable.
One watch. No,
they were Stack Watch version 2. That's like the lasagna. It's the two.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
is it one watch or two?
I remember I was working with them, and I quit to just make card clips. Because I was doing something that no one else was doing, was all the custom engraving stuff. And that's.
Are you still making card clips or no?
Yeah, still doing stuff. Actually, we've got some stuff that's coming out now that I can't show right now, but it's stuff that's never ever been done with card clips.
A lasagna clip?
Exactly. It has the cheese built in.
All roads lead to lasagna. I think you're catching on, Doug. This is.
Which one of you started the lasagna trend?
That's it. You get someone to scratch it.
So for the lasagna thing, essentially what was happening is I was doing a thing where I was on Discord and I had people in my ear, and then I did one with Ryan where, and we've done a few since then together where, we're in each other's ear and we're performing for people on Omegle, and we're telling the other person things to say and stuff. So it ends up being this kind of funny Impractical Jokers kind of thing. And one of the things that I was talking to people about on Omegle, just like this thing I kept throwing out, was asking them, if you bake 2 lasagnas and you stack one on top of the other one, how many lasagnas do you have now? And then we were just talking afterwards or something, or we were just in a Discord call. And then I think at some point I just said genre of lasagna. And then the rest was history, where it was like, oh, this is just we just laughed too hard at this.
So I have another thought about your stack lasagna.
And then Ryan made the song.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the song sealed the deal. That's the meat right there.
I created
the whole
2 songs since, and nothing can top the lasagna song.
Yeah, nothing can top it. What were you going to say, though, Doug?
So the stacked lasagna, it depends who the viewer is of the lasagna. if you take that lasagna to somebody and they now see this lasagna for the first time that's stacked, it's one lasagna. For somebody that watched you stack the lasagnas, they could conceivably say it was two lasagnas. Okay, because they have an experience of seeing that as being two lasagnas. So I think it's a matter of perspective if you really want a more thoughtful answer.
If an oversized lasagna falls in the woods, is it one or two?
You know what's funny is I found, like, when we had two guests on, so we had the Eversons on a few weeks ago, and last week we had Michael and Giancarlo. I think when there's two people on, they've always said two lasagnas. And when we've had one person on, most of the time I think they've said one lasagna. So I don't know. Just put it out there. Know. It's just a weird mathematical
interesting psychological
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, it was a match made in heaven. It was a combined effort of coming up with the genre of lasagna and saying that sentence, which has definitely never been said before, and then the song coming into being, and now it's iconic. But speaking of stacked lasagna, we have a question. How did you get into memdeck work?
That's a good question. Funny story. Years ago, I bought the Martin Joyle 6-Hour Memorized Deck book, and I learned the 6-Hour Memorized Deck. Didn't know what the fuck to do with it, and forgot the stack. I was like, learned it, spent the 6 hours, no idea what to do with it. Then Tamariz put out Mnemonica, the book. I forget what year, maybe 2002 or 3, probably 2002. And I bought it because I'm a huge fan of Tamariz, and I was like, anything Tamariz puts out, I'm going to buy. And the book arrived in the mail, and it was at the same time that I started hanging out with Blaine. So I was at Blaine's apartment. I just met him maybe a few weeks before that. I was at Blaine's apartment, and he said, oh, I brought up the fact, so he brought up Tamariz, and I brought up the fact that I had the book, and Blaine goes, can I have it? He's like, I already know the stack. Can I have your book? And I was like, he's like, I'll buy you another one. I haven't received mine yet. I was like, sure, because he already knew the stack, and I just met David, and he wanted it, so like, sure. So I think I went back to his apartment the next day, and I gave him my book. Meanwhile, he ordered me like another one because I didn't even know the stack at the time, and I started learning it, and I didn't know how to use it again. But Dave and I were hanging out, and we just started playing with it. And, I think that the real key was I started to figure out how to, instead of learning new pieces of magic with the stack, I figured out how do I make the things that I do already better with a stack. And I think that was a very different way to approach it, for me at least, because I didn't want to do dealing tricks and poker demonstrations and all that stuff. It's not me. I don't like that stuff. And, I was still doing magic in informal situations and didn't have tables, and wanted to be able to do stuff all the time. So I kind of forced myself to be in stack all the time and to do the stuff that I was doing, like ambitious cards and all that stuff, and maintain stack and figure out how to use a stack with the magic that I knew already. And that's when I really figured out the real power of a stack for the way I use it, is as an open index. Yeah. And, working on stuff with David together also helped. Yeah, I'm obsessed. I'm always stacked.
Well, I think you were probably one of the first people I saw live do memdeck work. So I bought, I was a Tamariz fan, but I didn't know, I remember watching some of his stuff on YouTube and stuff when I was younger, and it wasn't memdeck stuff. And I was like, wow, this guy is absolutely incredible. It's crazy what he's doing and stuff. And I was like, okay, I gotta buy this book. I had no idea about memdeck. And I remember I got it, and it was like, okay, just do, 8 Pharaoh shuffles and stuff. And I was like,
fuck that.
Yeah. What is that?
I never use the Pharaoh method for getting into stack. I just never do that. No, because I never start in new deck order to get into it. It's like I'm either going into it from a shuffled deck, or I'm just already in stack. And then, yeah. Like I'll have a spectator shuffle my stack and then restack in front of them, but I'm not ever Pharaohing to get there. Like I'm not going to do it from new deck.
I like to Pharaoh to get there. I do a lot of things with Pharaohs in stack anyway. If you read Dennis Baer's work on, finding your way home, I think is the name of his chapters on it in his books. The Pharaoh gives you this predictable method that to the spectator looks like shuffling, but for you it's very predictable, so you can use that to your advantage in many different ways. Yeah. So, one of the things that I do all the time, it's one of my favorite things that I do is Aussie wins double exposure. But I have a sequence, a double exposure sequence I do where I end up in stack afterwards, right? So you see me shuffling and it's back to front and like I'm all shuffled, but then like at the end of the effect, I'm in full stack and I can now fry you, right? I have another version of double exposure where I'm in stack and I end up one Pharaoh shuffle away from new deck order using double exposure. And again, it's that same thing of the effect is that you're shuffling face up and face down. It feels very chaotic, but actually you're organizing. And I think that's really, really powerful. Powerful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy that introduced me to your MemDeck stuff was P. McKinnon. He was like,
to my stuff or to who?
Yeah, to your stuff. He was
really?
Yeah, he was like, Ryan, you got to see Doug. And he called you over and was like, just show him something. And I don't think you did much. You were just like, name any card. And then it was like, boom, it's on top. And just did it like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, I hate you. Like.
The strongest thing with a mem deck is the fact that it's an open index and you can find anything instantly. So I think if you are working a mem deck, the biggest thing I would say is to learn how to estimate, and not from 1 through 52. Like you should learn how to estimate from anywhere in the deck, so you can have the deck cut anywhere, and someone says this card, and you can still find it because you know that it's about 14 cards away or something. Yeah. And you don't need to know the exact math. Like you have to run the math in your head, but you should have a feel for like how far away things are from other cards relatively, and what that feels like. No, it's I always compare mem deck to this. I say, imagine a deck of cards is like a gun, right? And you can either walk around with your gun loaded or unloaded, right? Mem deck's the same thing. You can have a deck of cards that's shuffled, it's unloaded, doesn't really do much, or you can walk around with a loaded deck that's ready to like destroy people, and then you can unload it if you want to. But
it's an absolute weapon.
Yeah.
So
I'm obsessed. I still learn new stuff. I did a 2 weekends, 3 weekends, how many weekends, memorized deck workshop with Woody Aragon a few weekends ago. There's so much to learn with that stuff. And again, nothing's ever done. You always find new things, new weird ways of doing things, new subtleties with things. That deck's awesome.
Yeah, it's the best. So I'm just scrolling through the questions that we had, just making sure we didn't miss anybody. We had a lot of lasagna related things.
A lot of lasagna questions.
A lot of lasagna. It's just a sea.
I did like
people on the stream. Can you see?
What did you say?
How many people are on the stream?
Currently there's 21.
Nice.
I like it says Mike asked, do I get a discount, or do I get a Lost Art discount if I get a lasagna tattoo on me?
I would say yes, but I'm not part of the voting committee. But I actually
X replied only if it's stacked.
I did a gig once, and at the end of the gig, one of the wait staff was like, "Can you show me something?" And I was like, "Sure." So I did double crossed for him, and he was freaking out so much. He's like, "I have to get this tattooed on me, on his palm." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." And it was in New York City on I forget the name of the restaurant. It's like a Michelin star restaurant in the Village. And I was like, "How about this?" I was like, "You want to get that tattooed in your palm? I'll pay for it because it's a good story for you and it's a good story for me." He goes, "Deal." I'm like, "All right." So I walked over to his manager, and I literally asked his manager, "Can this guy get like a break right now from work so he can go get a tattoo with me? And he's like, yes. So we walked out of the restaurant to 6th Avenue, and I paid $80, 80 or 90, whatever, 80 or 90 bucks. And I have it on Snapchat, actually. I have the video of an X. He got the fucking X in his hand. It took like a minute to do, and he got the X in his palm, and I filmed it. And yeah.
That's great. That's amazing.
Now, did the
When I
tattoo
tell people, like, don't get that tattooed. It's already been done. You know?
Yeah.
No, really, it's already been done.
Did the tattoo artist ask you to redo it, like to show him the trick?
No, I wouldn't anyway, because
yeah,
that guy already had like an amazing experience with the effect. Why would I?
For sure.
I
just think it would be like, if I was the tattoo artist, I'd be like, you're telling this because obviously the guy's going to be like, why do you want to get an X on your hand, right? But I think hearing the story, all I would want to see is, okay, let me see this trick.
Hold on, let me see if I have the video before I show it to you guys.
Or you just keep doing it all night, but just making it disappear from other people's hands and keep reappearing on his tattoo now.
Yeah, exactly.
Here.
It's back on your hand.
Here's the guy showing the X in his hand. And then here he is about to get it tattooed. And here's a tattoo artist pretty much saying like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Here it is getting tattooed in his hand.
Oh my God. What?
That's awesome.
That's so crazy.
And then here he is at the end, excited about the tattoo in his hand.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And here is signing the waiver. That's the waiver he had to sign. Not my waiver. I probably should have asked him to sign a waiver.
That's
Wait
awesome.
to see that a lot of other people have done that trick. Anyway.
I said legendary. I think that's crazy to finish a trick and say, all right,
I need a tattoo right
I need
now.
a tattoo of this right now.
Yeah, which goes to show, like first of all, it's a really great piece of magic. I wish it wasn't such a mass marketed thing, because I love double cross. I have so much work in double cross. But even with the amount of work that I have on it, like if I do it for somebody and someone else does it for somebody, it's the same trick, right? Like an X appeared in their hand. So it's one of the few pieces of magic I do that like I can't stop doing it because it's so good. But I cringe a little bit myself when I do it because I go, oh, I worry that the spectator might go away and tell somebody else, and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Some kid down the street from me does that, and it's just not have that same effect. But I just spoke to my manager the other day because he does magic as well, and we spoke about how good double cross is. It's such a good effect.
Yeah, it's annoying how good that effect is because it's so popular nowadays.
It's like years ago, ring flight. Ring flight was like everyone's favorite thing. Everyone carried, a keychain to ring flight.
Yeah.
And I decided like I'm not going to do it because I don't want to have everyone telling the same story.
Yeah.
The magic they experienced with me that they could have experienced with some, guy's been doing magic for 6 months and bought ring flight in a magic shop. Like I just didn't want that risk. It just wasn't good enough. So I stopped doing it. And double cross kind of feels the same way to me. It's like, oh, it's so good, but like I don't really want the risk. Like if that tattoo guy goes and like people are like, what's that tattoo in your hand? He goes, oh man, this magician did this amazing thing. It was mind blowing. It was so good. I got it tattooed. And they go, oh yeah, I've seen that before. And then he goes, really? Like it wasn't just for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It devalues it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that does make sense. I mean, I think it's funny because like we've been doing this now for a couple months on YouTube. I was doing it before with Blaze and stuff on Instagram Live and stuff. And I'd say a lot of guys that we've had come on, and I think this is a great piece for everybody that's getting into magic now, that's thinking about performing, thinking about making this a career, is like every single person I think that's, done fairly well career-wise has said, make it original, do original stuff.
Oh,
and so
dude.
I totally get that, where it's like, that fear of someone else
100%.
doing
Yeah.
something that you're doing, and then them just going, oh yeah, well, I've seen that guy do that, right?
But, you know what's funny? Marco Tempest years ago when I first started doing magic, I was doing stuff I would see in VHS and DVDs and things I read in books, and like, hey, we all published stuff, and it was great, it was fine. But Marco, I remember one day I was in the office, and Marco told me, you get a different kind of satisfaction when you perform your own magic, right? It's your own baby, and like somehow that like doubles your own personal doubles, and much more than doubles. Like the amount of joy you get from doing something that you created and sharing that with somebody is so much higher, exponentially higher than regurgitating someone else's magic, even if you have your own twist on it, or if you have to make it yours. And double cross, even though, here's my problem with double cross, even though I've made it mine in many ways, I have all these little touches and details on it and things that, like, every time I see someone else do it, I go, oh man, like, I think mine's better because of X, Y, and Z. Just details, right? They're all details, but the story that the person walks away with is the same, right? And I didn't write that story. That story is the same story that I do, will be the same story as you do, will be the same story someone else does, and I don't like that. I don't like that the story that I'm telling isn't my story with that piece of magic. Even if I have my own touches or details on it, it's the same story that someone else is telling. So I think it's important to craft your magic that the story that people walk away with is unique. And that when they tell people about what you did, there's no risk of someone being like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Or, so-and-so does that. Or, that's not interesting to me. I think everything has to have its own unique story.
Yeah, and that it ends up being so much more important than even the moment that they experience is the story afterwards, because that lives on so much longer. And so that's why effects that aren't describable are usually end up having a very difficult time being very powerful, unless it's something that, like, I guess if I think of, for example, like, Shin's routines, I think, are very difficult to describe because there's so many different moments that I imagine the way people would describe it is like, did you see that guy do those card tricks?
I think with Shin, he has things like he uses smoke a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that like the smoke stuff has kind of become part of his signature with magic, and I think people will describe things with smoke, and it definitely becomes Shin when they describe it with smoke. A card.
Yeah, did you see the guy doing the card tricks with the smoke? And then people are like, oh, smoke, what happened? Yeah. Right. And so that becomes part of the story there.
Right. That's his brand, and it kind of, a lot of card tricks just kind of get lumped into card tricks, even if they're totally different plots. One of the reasons I love card stuff, but like it's one of the reasons I shy away from doing. If I want to have impact on somebody, I rarely use a deck of cards. And I can fool the hell out of the deck of cards, but like, the story they walk away with is still a card trick, unless you make it not a card trick, right? Like you make it about something more than the cards, where the story is a better story. I do a thing with, like, I send somebody out of the room and they pick a card, put it in their pocket, and then all of a sudden they get a text message with the name of the card, long before Stranger or anything else like that was out. I've been doing that. God, it's literally the first thing I ever learned to code, and there's videos of me online doing it too. But the story is a better story because it's no longer a card trick. It's about text messaging and about they left it to a different room and did it, and and I kind of build up the impossibility behind all of it. So it's more than just a card trick. But again, I still a card trick in some sense,
Absolutely. Yeah. That was like that study that Joshua J was part of conducting. I don't know exactly what his affiliation was with it, but they were talking about just they surveyed all of these people and then asked them questions after they had just seen a magic performance. And then I think a day later, a week later, a month later, a year later and stuff, and continually asked the feedback. And it was always that no one was able to really describe the difference between card effects at all. And those were always the least memorable. Yeah.
Well, look, again, data collected. Back to my original thing. I think for me, that's the nugget for you is like, collect data on your performances, analyze the data, and use that data to make yourself better, or make your effects better, or make your performance better, right? Like literally collect data, write it down. And actually, I didn't even learn that from Magic. I learned that from a developer, actually, a developer that was basically talking about how to build business and how you should listen to developers and use data to help your business grow. And I was like, look, that's great. It's a great piece of advice. Like the more data you have, the more you can use that to make your Magic better.
Absolutely, that's a very good piece of advice, and something that people usually don't think about in the context of performance.
Yeah, and I think there should
data
be
on your performance.
Formality to the data. Like literally write it down. Like keep it in a spreadsheet. There's so much you can do with data anyway, right? So why not have it?
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, no, it's funny that because I think it's something that I do, and I don't, obviously I'm not keeping the data, but I think usually when I do shows, I usually ask someone afterwards, like, what was your favorite and least favorite part of the show? You know, was it a routine or a joke or something like that? Just to see what they say. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of people are always like, and I think you have a great idea with emailing them and going, because I feel like it's maybe not as much of a personal interaction. I think sometimes when you ask someone right away, like, what's your favorite part? You know, that's always like, yeah, okay, it's this for sure. But when you say like, what was your least favorite thing? I feel like people always steer away from that. They're like, oh, it was so, everything was good, you know? And it's like, you want that feedback.
Interpersonally, people aren't going to tell you the bad stuff. So you do have to give them like a survey. And, you know, like in the business world now, like after conferences and events, like everyone gets surveys and people take surveys and things are ranked. And like literally like in our virtual show, we've had many clients send us like the data on their surveys of like what they thought of our performance. And they literally get feedback from the entire audience, which is great. You know, like that's becoming normal now. And I think magicians should be using the same tools that the business world is using to make themselves better.
Absolutely.
And again, it could be something simple like A/B testing, where you're just testing which version is better if I do it this way or this way. Super simple. And you do it like 100 times, right? This way and 100 times this way. And you get a feeling. You say like, well, it worked better this way. And then you try and keep everything else the same. And then maybe you change your pattern this and try the same pattern this way. And like, you know, you just change one thing at a time until you're fine tuning, right? Fine tuning, turning all the knobs till you find the one that gets the best reception.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice and something that we haven't heard before. Yeah, collect data and use that in order to improve your shows. That's great. We have a question here from Matt Hamilton. What is the backstory on the LeBron James clip? I have no idea what that is.
So here's the backstory. It's a very weird backstory. Blaine asked me if I would accompany LeBron. It wasn't LeBron. He asked me if I'd accompany Carmelo Anthony. And I don't know anything about sports. I don't care about sports, to be honest. He's like, Carmelo needs someone to film something. You'd have to go to Baltimore with him. We need someone that's like is discreet and knows how to film stuff. Would you want to do that? I was like, sure. That sounds like fun. Hang out with some basketball players for a day. So I go to Carmelo Anthony's apartment in New York. We get in like a SUV. We drive to Teterboro Airport, which is like a private aviation airport. And we hop in a private jet. And it was myself, Carmelo, and then LeBron jumped in, and his wife, Savannah, and his friend, I forget his friend's name. Anyway, the five of us get in this private jet, and we fly from New York to Baltimore. And it was at the time that the NBA had a lockout. So there was a lockout of whatever year that was. So these guys were all meeting up in Baltimore for two things. It was because a bunch of other basketball players arrived there. They were going to do like a little pickup games, and they were going to meet with the NBA and discuss the lockout. So we get to this restaurant, and you know, all these basketball players, CP3, and like local Baltimore rappers, and all these different people. And all the entourage stayed downstairs in the restaurant, and all the basketball players and the NBA officials go upstairs in the restaurant, and they start talking about the lockout and whatever other business they were doing. So while we were downstairs, and I'd done a little bit of magic in the plane for these guys. Let me preface with that. While we were downstairs, LeBron's friend is Bruno. His name's Bruno. While we were downstairs, Bruno asked me to do something, and I just started doing magic for all these people. These are just like random hanger-ons for all these NBA, like their friends, or cousins, or whoever in this restaurant. And as I'm doing magic for them, they start going crazy, right? Like this whole boisterous, crazy group, to the point that they were so loud and boisterous that they stopped the meeting upstairs, and all the NBA players and all the NBA execs came downstairs to see what the hell was going on. And some guy that was there with LeBron started filming, and I was doing magic for CP3 in that clip, and Carmelo's there with LeBron, and they're all freaking out. And then they say in the clip, if you listen to the clip, they're like asking something about me, and then you hear LeBron go, "He already did it in the plane," because I'd already done stuff for him in the plane in his private jet. So yeah, that's where that clip starts and ends. They're the ones. LeBron was the one that posted on his YouTube channel, and then I, of course, took it and put it on my channel. Luckily, because that eventually got taken down on his YouTube channel after like many years. But I do some Memdeck stuff in there. I was just kind of riffing. I'm like wearing a backpack and like just messing around with a Memdeck. But yeah, that's the story of that clip. And then I hung out with them and then flew back the next day with Carmelo back to New York.
That's awesome.
Pretty epic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really epic.
And then like LeBron, I'm like, yeah, maybe if it was Michael Jordan, I would have been more excited. But like, I didn't really know much about basketball. It wasn't like I was never starstruck because,
Yeah.
I didn't know who these guys really were. I knew they were basketball players. So it was like, it's not that they weren't that impactful to me.
Yeah. I think Bryce asked, he said, what's the best thing you've learned from those surveys? So is there
best thing I learned from
something
the surveys is what worked, what didn't work, and what I should improve, what I should take out of the show. Like, literally you learn everything from those surveys. And, mostly, let me just clarify, those surveys, I mostly, it was an accelerated way of getting my virtual show up and running and getting it good and polishing it, right? Because after every virtual show, I just blasted an email, literally everyone, and I had the same questions, and I'd go on and I'd look at the data, and then Ryan Oakes and I would analyze it all and say like, okay, let's take this out, let's change this. Hey, here, I'll tell you something stupid. Like in the very beginning, when we started doing virtual shows, we started doing Princess Card Trick, right? And totally not original, right? But something when we're still learning how to do virtual shows, we're like, here's something easy, and we'll fill 5 minutes of time or 3 minutes, however long it is, and we'll eventually take it out of the show and replace it with something else as soon as we have like a more substantial show built. Because we're still scrambling for material, and this was in March and April last year. Dude, Princess Card Trick ranks really high in the surveys, and we've changed it a lot since then. We have our own handling, and it's really, I will say, it's very smartly routined. The way Ryan does it, it's really clever, and the handling is cool, and it's not normal Princess Card Trick. It has a twist to it. Now it's really good, and I'm not embarrassed about having it in the show. Initially, I was like, oh man, we got the Princess Card Trick. Now I'm not embarrassed, because I think if any magician sees it, they go, oh, that's smart, right? There's something cool and smart about it. But the reason we kept it in the show in the first place, because in the surveys, it ranked really high every single time. People loved it. They thought it was great. And we're like, well, why should we take it out? We can make it better, and we did make it a lot better, and made it ours. So yeah, still part of the show.
Yeah.
Big tomorrow.
Wow.
Nice.
So you like an effect that you put in just because you wanted to kind of fill time and have something you could test out ended up staying in the show because the data you collected proved that it was really hitting hard with the audiences.
Yeah.
Which is something you might not have expected going into it.
Right. And then because people liked it so much, we decided we really had to work on it and make it like a solid piece that we were proud of. So we changed a lot of things to it and routined it in a very clever way. I got to give Ryan credit on that. Yeah. So now it's the kind of thing that, like, I think if a magician was to see it, that they'd be like, they wouldn't just think it's the princess card trick. They know it's a princess card trick, but they understand that there's something clever about it in a couple, for a few different reasons. They'd be like, oh, it's a smart way to do that, right? So
I've
like,
never seen it like that.
yeah. So there's something we've made it ours again in some way, and I think that's important. Because initially we're like, oh man, I can't believe we still have this in the show. It's so generic and it's so not interesting, and it's not creative, and it was literally just like a space filler while we were trying to figure out like what is a virtual show, how do virtual shows work, what material works and what doesn't work, and it was just one of those things that we put in there as a test, and it worked, and people told us it worked.
That's
nice.
Great.
I got to take a second to shout out F.A. Omar Arslan. I think he's from Turkey, if I remember correctly. But this guy, he's on his way to school and is on the school bus and watches our podcast on the school bus. So
thank you.
That's awesome.
Super cool. Yeah. Most people
huge fan of Turkey, Turkish food. Yeah, love your country.
Yeah, but it's always cool to see that there's people around the world watching and listening to. I mean, the advice you've given already tonight is so great for magicians. And we always say, hopefully, that's why we started the podcast. I started on Instagram Live, was so that people would learn things during COVID and stuff. I was like, let's inspire magicians to get better and stuff and to do new stuff and to push the boundaries. But I hope that people are watching and learning so much and writing stuff down and taking what you're saying and then using it, or putting it into action down the road.
What you should do is make like an abridged version of this instead of like being 2.5 hours, where people have to listen to 2.5 hours and like wait for the one nugget. You just you find those nuggets. And you just make like a.
We should make a nugget compilation. Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's like reading a book, though, right? Like. I read. I'm not a big reader, but I do read books, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. And I always say I listen to them to hopefully hear one good nugget. Like, if I can take one gold nugget out from every book I read, then I will be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else.
It's such a time-consuming process. As long as you enjoy the process. I mean, there's so many magic things I've been to, like lectures and things, where this one thing is just amazing. You're like, that just made everything worth it. Like, I just sat 3 hours of like stuff that's like not interesting, but one thing in there is amazing, and that's worth it. You got to dig. It's about digging, finding the nuggets, things that work for you.
That's it. Yeah. Now, I mean, you've given us so much advice on data and stuff that I think, I don't know, Blaze, what do you think?
Well, we gotta know if the person giving us all this advice is, has a high IQ,
Yeah, they're actually as smart as they.
It's actually, as smart as you see.
So
this whole thing was memorized. This whole script was memorized. So now you're going to ask me to go off script.
We're going off book. Oh, we are most certainly going off book. Yeah.
It's that time. It's time for my favorite rhyme. It's time for the IQ test. Let's see if you're better than the rest. It's time for the IQ test. Let's see if you're better than the rest. Did your teachers call you smart? Or more of an epidemic brain fart? It's about time we see. Can you count? 1, 2, 3. Let's see if the answers will agree. Can you count? 1, 2, 3.
I had to put on the glasses to look smart.
His IQ is already raised.
10 bonus points automatically.
His brain grew 3 sizes that day. We got to work on the amount of syllables for epidemic brain fart, man. it just comes out of there, and you're like, I really feel like you're getting thrown off my rhythm.
As long as it gets thrown in between those beats, you're okay. You say
as long as it's within the beats.
There's
I
an
like
amazing.
that.
Bryce said these segues are 20 seconds too uncomfortably long. Bryce, I'd like you to know that is the only one that I didn't cut off. The other two, I cut off the lasagna one about halfway through the song, and I cut out the other one like about halfway through.
Yeah.
There's a great interview with Eminem on 60 Minutes, I think it is. Also worth putting on YouTube, checking it out, where they ask him about different words and rhymes, and he basically has a notebook. He has actually a shoebox filled with notebooks of like different things and little notes he's written down. And they ask him in the show, and he like opens up to a random page, and he's like, "Oh no!" He's like, "This one I wrote like it was like on his bedside table in a hotel, and I think he had an idea, and he wrote it down, and it was like one piece of paper in his notebook." And he goes, "Oh, I can't read this one. This one's too good." And then he reads another one. But the point is that like he was able to he's like, you don't think that these words necessarily rhyme, but you can make them rhyme. Mm-hmm. And he had ways of like demonstrating that, but they were really impressive. It was one of those segments where if you were like an old guy and you knew nothing about music, and then you see Eminem and you're like, oh, this guy, and then you listen to him, you go, oh, this guy's smart. This guy puts the work in. He's got all these notebooks. He like thinks about this stuff all the time, and here's a way that he found to like rhyme words that like no one else would have thought of, but he could make it happen. Really, really cool segment. I'd recommend watching that so you can modify your song.
And having that kind of science to creativity, and that you're actually, you're taking a skill in the craft and working at it and continuing to refine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Ryan, is I'm not trying to say that your sculpture that you've created with this lyrical masterpiece is any less of a masterpiece. Just that there might be some extra stone we need to chisel away in order to hone in a little bit more.
I hadn't freestyle. So back in the day, I used to play a ton of basketball, and I had knee and back surgery. And so the guys I used to hang out with before I really dove into magic, they were kind of the ones that got me into magic, actually. But we used to freestyle all the time, and I hadn't freestyled in probably at least 10, maybe 15 years. And so that song was going to be like,
what?
Yeah, I still can't do it.
Tonight's your night. Tonight's your night,
bud. You ready? We'll throw on a beat.
Ryan.
Come on, man.
We'll make it easy.
Your segment now.
Lasagna. Double
it's magic raps.
Ready? I'll put a beat on for you. Hold on.
Oh, no, it will be so bad.
My man Ryan coming off the dome. Wherever there's tricks, that he's home. Come on, Ryan, jump on, hit this beat. I just feel like you can't handle the heat. Come on, Ryan, jump on top of these raps, man. I'm going to stop. And now is your chance.
I'm not taking it. I am not taking it. That's good, boy.
Here we go. Can you hear that?
And the lag's gonna make this so great.
Yeah, it's gonna be laggy. I don't know about it. This is gonna be like this is gonna end up on Harrison's his PowerPoint presentation of like terrible things in magic this year. Okay, let me see. We're here on Magic After Dark. Oh, I thought you started lagging. I thought you stopped. I was like, we're here on Magic After Dark. And then I was like, and it lagged and it went. And I was like, did you just end the song?
Yeah.
I'll just stop right there. You owe me for stopping it.
I was like, okay, I got something that I could do. We're on here on Magic After Dark, and then I can go from there. And then I hit the first. I was like, okay, let's hit the first line, and then it went like blah, and I was like,
my
God. Not your fault. Yeah. First of all, I'll tell you a quick story. We did one of our first Zoom shows was like a birthday or something, and they had this great idea of like have everyone sing Happy Birthday. Oh my God, it was the most awful thing to hear like 50 people trying to sing Happy Birthday together over Zoom because everyone was out of sync. It was just awful.
Oh yeah.
So look, I put you in a bad position there. You killed it.
No. Blaze killed it.
I did not. Yo,
I got through one line. I was like, "Yo, we're
Doug
Magic
up
Africa.
in here with the memorized deck in this rap battle, Ryan. Yo, you're gonna get wrecked.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna stop rapping because I know I'm not the best. You know what's that time for the IQ test? All right,
There we go. He kills me. He's gonna do the next song.
So, also, I'll just pause for a second. We got a thing from X. He said, "Yo, I was in the bathroom taking a poop, and all of a sudden, I had a feeling that Blaze was freestyling, and I started vomiting." So we're gonna just move on. It's Magic Raps. All right. So
that's
first question: series. Would you like to take it away, Ryan, in our IQ test?
Sure. Doug, how do you put a giraffe in a refrigerator?
How do you put a giraffe in a refrigerator? I mean, let me ask: Is this like a legitimate question? I mean, how do you put
a legit question?
This is as legit as it gets.
So the first question is, how big is a giraffe? Is it a baby giraffe? How big is a refrigerator? Because if it's a large refrigerator and a baby giraffe, just put it in. Take the shelves out, probably. Put it in carefully.
I'm gonna say it's an adult giraffe and a fridge.
Like a mini fridge.
It's an adult fridge.
Yeah, like an adult fridge, not a beer fridge, not like a mini fridge, but
this isn't no kiddie fridge.
No, like a fridge.
I would also say you could probably take the giraffe to somewhere cold, and it would be the equivalent of a refrigerator, right? That counts, right?
I think a refrigerator still has to have walls. It has to have
So then I would maybe take the giraffe to a place where they build refrigerators and ask for a custom refrigerator to be built around the giraffe.
Custom refrigerator.
Custom refrigerator.
He's worked for David Blaine too long.
You know, you gotta give the giraffe.
My man's in a world where he can get custom refrigerators all willy nilly.
I'm just saying, you got animal rights people. You gotta make sure that giraffe.
We'll clarify that the question does say, how do you put a giraffe into a refrigerator?
Yeah, doesn't say that the refrigerator can't be custom. Doesn't say that the giraffe can't be like a baby giraffe either, right?
I don't even know how big a baby giraffe is, though. It's got to be like still the same size as almost a horse, right?
I mean, I'm sure it starts with like. Let's Google it.
I mean, like a baby, like it's probably the same size like a baby horse, so it's got to be still probably, I don't know, close to 100 pounds, maybe.
It's only 6 feet, about 1.8 meters tall, and it only weighs 50 to 70 kilos. So you know.
Oh, so it's a little bit more than I thought.
The answer is carefully. You put it in there carefully.
Carefully. Well, we were looking for a step-by-step answer. There is a correct answer. You were verging on it.
Okay, so hold on. There is like a legitimate step-by-step answer here. I thought this was like
an actual answer.
Creativity or something. How do you put a giraffe into a refrigerator? You could have like a base, like a wedge. You know, so it's kind of like a Mary Poppins bag. You have the refrigerator, but there's like a secret base underneath it, and so the giraffe goes in. But like, there's actually more space there for the giraffe than what's actually visibly what looks like just a plain refrigerator, right?
Wow, interesting. A wedge. We have not gotten wedge yet. Shall we reveal the correct answer?
I think so.
The correct answer is open the refrigerator, put the giraffe in, and close the door. This question tests whether you are doing simple things in a complicated way.
Doug, you complicated it just a little bit with the custom refrigerator.
Well, you know, maybe a little bit, but it was still a pretty simple answer, right? Just get a bigger refrigerator.
Close, but no cigar. So we're going to move on to question 2. We're going to move on to question 2. All right. So here.
How do you put an elephant in a refrigerator?
Yes, sir. How do you put an elephant into a refrigerator?
You open the door, you take the giraffe out, you put the elephant in.
And?
Close the door.
There we go. My man's got it. The wrong answer would be to just say open the refrigerator, put in the elephant, close the door. The correct answer is exactly what you said. Open the refrigerator, take out the giraffe, put in the elephant, close the door. This tests your ability to think through the repercussions of your actions. That was a nice one, Doug. All right.
So, and that's question 2, so it's worth double the points, right? So I make up for the first one.
Yeah.
Is that how that
So,
works?
yeah. I don't think we can do that.
I don't know if we have that many points to give.
Yeah.
You're bleeding us dry here. All right. So we're gonna ready to move on.
Yeah, question 1.63927 A, B, C, D, E.
The Lion King is hosting an animal conference. All the time.
So yeah, the Lion King is hosting an animal conference. All the animals attend except for one. Which animal does not attend?
So I think the crux of the question here is the fact that it's the Lion King, and I don't remember the Lion King story. Is it his father that died, or who died in the Lion King? Whoever died in the Lion King could not attend. How about that?
I think it was Mufasa that died in the Lion King.
Sure. And Mufasa is the one that does not attend because he's dead.
Well,
Interesting.
that got a little bit dark.
A little bit.
A
Not as
little
dark
bit
as
dark.
Aussie. Aussie was a little bit more dark. But
Let me think if there's another answer to that. Let me think of another answer. Which animal does not attend? Which animal does not attend? All the animals attend except one.
Well,
Is there someone that's not
I feel like we've already gotten a final answer.
Yeah, I gave you a final answer. I'm just trying to think if there's another.
the correct answer, Doug, is
The correct answer, Doug, is the elephant. He's still in the fridge.
Oh,
can attend.
Just test your memory.
He's in a refrigerator, Doug.
My man can memorize a deck, but he can't remember that he left an elephant in the fridge just 30 seconds ago.
Key question.
true.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm going to fix that. Let me get back to the question. We have
One question remaining.
Yes.
Do you want me to just ask
I'm
the
gonna
question?
nail this one.
Actually, yeah, let's bring it up because this is a good one. Okay.
Is river you must cross, but what?
Okay. There's
Does it
a
have
river
like
you must cross, but is inhabited by crocodiles. How do you solve the problem?
Well, all the crocodiles are at the animal convention, so you just go through the river. Huh?
How do you go through? What, you have a bridge or something? Or
Yeah, I mean, you could just swim through. Is there a reason why the river would be dry? No. So you just swim across the river. Why wouldn't you? Because the crocodiles are not there. If all the animals are at the animal convention.
He's got it.
He's got it.
He's got it. Correct answer. You swim across all the crocodiles are attending the animal conference.
See, you know what happens is once you see how these questions are written and what the answers are, there's a pattern to it, right? The pattern is that the question relies on data from the past question, basically. So once you know that that's the pattern, then I think they're easy to solve.
Well, I'll say that we've had many a guest recognize that pattern and then not get any of them right.
Still give the wrong answers.
I would say I think Aussie was probably one of those who specifically understood what the pattern was, but then consistently answered every question wrong.
Yeah, him and David Penn was everything had to rely back onto a movie, so he needed visual proof.
Visual evidence.
You know, it's once you get the first question, you see what kind of pattern the answers are looking for, right? Because I'm like, okay, this is maybe like a creativity test. Like, I'll show you something real quick.
Data. It just says data.
So lasagna after this?
So lasagna after this. Yeah, I actually made pasta right before this, and I'm absolutely starving. So we'll definitely be having pasta. Not
actually, I might know where it is.
I scarfed down a veggie patty wrap from Subway.
Ah, veggie patty wrap. Not vegan, but yes, vegetarian.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it is vegan in Canada. It does not have
vegan
cheese
in Canada.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only the States has cheese in it.
Wow, that's just like McDonald's fries in Canada are vegan, but are not vegan in America, which is very frustrating. There is
McDonald's
dairy
fries?
in the fries at McDonald's
Really?
in the U.S.
How do you make French fries with dairy in it?
Let me see. Let me see.
That is-
McDonald's fries.
Crazy.
I can't find it, but I'll tell you what it is. I feel this. I'm just disappointed in all your viewers. Leonard Green years ago gave me this amazing puzzle, and it's a wooden block. It's got a cylindrical hole cut out of it, and there's a wooden cylinder that fits inside this hole, and it has a conical point to it that extends past the top of the wooden block. And the question is, how do you get the wooden cylinder out of the block without touching it? And it's a great question because it's a question of creativity. Like how would you get this thing out? And one of the answers could be that you fill the room with water and you hold the thing and this thing floats out, right? Or you wait for an earthquake and like let this thing out. So, you know, it's an exercise in like creative thinking, solutions to this weird problem. And then there's a really simple solution, and the really simple solution uses a scientific principle called Bernoulli's air flow, whatever, where you just basically blow on the cylindrical thing and the air pressure goes down and makes it pop out. Really cool little toy, but it's a really interesting exercise in creative thinking. So when I saw your giraffe thing, I was like, oh, it's like the same thing. It's like, how do you come up with like a weird, fun solution, like the earthquake with water?
Oh, yeah. I think that's the fun part about it. I mean, I literally asked those questions, at least two of them, in an interview one time. I was interviewing for an assistant, and I was like, I want to see how creative this person can be on the spot. So I think you're right. I think that it is, but it's great that there's like just a logical.
I think that it's so much more fun when there are creative answers to it, rather than people just trying to get it right. Yeah.
Asi, who, you know, vegan, talked about being a vegan on the show for a good amount of time before we started that segment, said that you should chop up, like kill the giraffe, chop them up, and then Tetris the parts into the fridge.
It's like you specifically need to Tetris the pieces.
I thought about chopping up, but then I looked at the question and didn't say how do you put a dead giraffe in a fridge. So I decided against that solution.
Yeah, the issue here was that once Aussie made that answer for the first question, every question became hinged on that logic. So it was like, oh, well, you just kill the elephant and Tetris those pieces on top of the giraffe, and there's enough space still. He was like, this is a Sam's Club refrigerator, right? A Costco fridge. And then he went into, at the end, when you need to cross the river, he was like, you go back to your fridge and you pull out all of those animal pieces that have been Tetrised in there and you throw them into the river to distract the crocodiles as you paddle across. And it just, everything was hinged on that first question. So there was no shot of it ever aligning.
He didn't got off on the wrong foot, right? If he'd gotten off on the right foot, then his logic would have worked. So
but I liked his logic. It was
so wait, how did I rank comparatively to your other guests?
I mean, you got 2 out of 4. We have had a couple people. Colin Cloud got 4 for 4.
Colin did
all of them. Yeah, Colin got 4 for 4.
He was our first guest to get 4 for 4. Everybody before that like botched quite a bit of it. And then Xavier actually got all 4 when he came on. Trying to think if we had anybody else.
I can't think of anybody
Xavier
else.
and Colin are twice as smart as I am. I got some work to do.
Xavier says I did
too. So the thing is, it says that according to a study by Anderson Consulting, around 90% of the professionals they tested got all questions wrong to that test, but many preschoolers got several correct answers. So Anderson Consulting says this conclusively disproves the theory that most managers have the brains of a 4-year-old.
Well, you know, it's funny.
I think they're just more childish than you.
I think it's funny you say it because I often tell people that like performing magic for kids is so much more difficult than it is for adults because kids often, even if they don't see the method, that there's a thread or whatever else it is, their mind goes to the simplest solution, which often is how it works. And so they might not see the method, but they'll just blurt out like, "Oh, there's a thread," or what, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny that like, magicians like, oftentimes the solution is as simple. It's like, the Johnny Eck illusion, cutting somebody in half. Why not use a half person? That's like the obvious solution, but nobody ever thinks that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magic Man Dan 6 says, "Didn't Spidey get all 4 too?"
Did Spidey get all 4?
I'm trying to remember if Spidey got all 4. I think he did, because I said after that I think all the mentalists so far have got all 4, right?
Oh, maybe he did get all 4. Yeah.
See, what I should have done is hacked your computer and
yeah.
looked at whatever website it was.
Just looked at whatever was on my screen. Yeah.
That's why we usually do it so late in the segment, is so that we figure people that are coming on, if they want to prequel what they're about to get into, are probably not going to.
They're never going to make it to
the
this
segments.
Point. Yeah.
So they're not going to see 20 questions. They're not going to see, lasagna for sure. And they definitely won't get to the IQ test. So we've been pretty safe that way. So
yeah, but on what you were saying before, just now, Doug, is like I always say to people that I would much rather perform at like a convalescent home for elderly people than I would perform for kids, because my thought process is, for kids, everything is new and exciting to a kid because they've lived such a short life that everything is kind of magical and exciting and new. Whereas if you perform for someone who is elderly and like has seen everything and has like, to give them the experience of something that they've never like had in their life. Like my great aunt just turned 100. And so I, at her birthday party, at her 100th party, like performed a bunch of things for her, and seeing her face light up and having her freak out. And, the fact that knowing she's lived a whole century and has never experienced this moment was so much more special, I think, than performing for a kid where everything's new, is just my mentality about it. Yeah.
Some kid you don't know or care about either.
yeah. That's also a part of it. Yeah.
Gen Alpha.
David Lopez said, "Doug, what is going through your mind as you're riffing with Memdeck?" I thought he said riffling through a Memdeck, but riffing with Memdeck.
While I'm riffing Memdeck, what's going through my mind? Honestly, I'm just looking for opportunities for things, right? The fact that you have a whole deck that you know everything where everything is means that, like, the possibilities are endless. So, what's going through my mind is just trying to figure out, like, what's the best thing I can do in this situation? Where can that card appear? Or, like, how do I make them say the card on the top of the deck? Or, I mean, it just depends. It depends on the situation. It's a hard question because it's such an open question. But I'm basically just looking for opportunities. That's the beauty about Memdeck is you have, because you know where everything is, you can look for opportunities that make things magic.
You can do anything because you can instantly find any card that's named without ever going through them. And if you have any modicum of like sleight of hand ability with being able to palm it off or whatever, then like now crazy miracles are happening.
But you don't even need, it's more about that stuff. I think it's more about timing. A lot of people sit in front of mirrors and they practice, and I think the best thing to practice is people skills, like being in front of people and audiences and timing. And way it was funny, like during COVID, I didn't get to perform very much for people live. And when I first started doing magic again for people live, the thing that was most jarring to me was that I had to think about stuff, right? Usually you've done something a million times and you just flow with it. But like I learned to think about like, oh, how did this work again? And like and for other people, they didn't necessarily perceive a difference because like it was still magic and it was good and it was whatever. But I had to think, and that thinking was very conscious thinking. So a lot of times when I'm doing stuff with Memdeck, truth is I'm not really thinking because I'm somewhat in autopilot or flow state or whatever, because if you do something enough times, you've kind of figured out options. The only time I'm not really doing that is if I'm trying to challenge myself with, like I said earlier, trying to find like a new place for the deck to appear or whatever it is. Then I'm like actively like trying to be creative and forcing myself to do new things to see if they're better than the old things that I was doing.
It's interesting that you say like almost remembering how to do things. I remember I did one gig at Christmas time that was live, because I knew the people. I went there and I was like, just doing some walk around for a little bit, and I was like, I don't remember how to do this card trick. It's like literally like, because it's not in my virtual show, so I haven't done it in like almost 2 years now, and I was like, let me do this trick, and I started to do the trick, and I'm like, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do next. Like it's like having Alzheimer's all of a sudden.
It's funny. You also forget what your full repertoire is, right? So I did a gig, and then afterwards I was like, oh man, like why didn't I do this? I have this really great. Actually, why didn't I do double exposure? I was like, they didn't see that, and that's like one of my favorite things. And I'd like forgot about it, even though I had a ton of work on it.
Yeah, that's always the fun part. A couple times I've been like driving to an event or something, and then you remember a trick, and I was like, I haven't done that trick in years. I don't even remember if I remember how to do it, but I used to do it. And then that's always fun, I think, at a gig, like to go, I'll sit in the car before I go in and be like, can I figure out how to do this? Okay. And then just play with it. That like after, obviously I'm not like showing it like check this amazing thing out, like, but I'll do a couple things, and if that group is good or whatever, then I'll throw this. You guys want to see something I haven't done in like 10 years, and it's always fun that way, I think.
There's still that muscle memory. I did that Memdeck workshop with Woody Aragon, and he showed like a false shuffle, overhand shuffle sequence. And as he was showing it, I'm like, I know this. I'm like, I went and I spent a week or like 4 days with Tamariz at his house in Cadiz in Spain. And Tamariz showed me this overhand false shuffle sequence. It was amazing. And I wrote it down. I wrote down like a note, but like it wasn't very thorough. And I practiced it for like a week, 2 weeks. And it was great. And then COVID hit, and I just didn't do it at all. And then when Woody showed this thing, I was like, in the back of my head, I was like learning with Woody. And then I was like, somehow I knew the muscle memory from this, even though like Woody's timing was a little bit different. Like instead of like shuffling like 4 in the beginning, Woody was doing 5 or something. Like, so like the numbers were a little bit different. But like in my head, I was like, I know this sequence. I used to do this, and it's familiar to me, but I don't remember it completely. And then once I started doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know all the details in this because so it was this very weird thing of like, do I know this? I think I know this because it's a little different. Oh, it is actually the same thing because just the numbers of cards he was shuffling was different. Oh, here's my muscle memory of it. I got it. It was this weird process of like refiguring it out. It was like it was a piece of Tamariz gold that he showed me at his house. I should have remembered. It should have been something I kept up with and practiced.
Well, so Doug, one thing I know that we like to do during the show, and I think I always ask first if there's anybody else that has any questions, obviously comment them. But one thing that we like to do during the show is to do a giveaway. And so we've been doing a giveaway from one of the downloads on Lost Art Magic. But we always ask all the viewers a question. So they got to comment, first person to comment in to answer the question. So I think I have a question, but trying to think of a better one from the episode, because I think you showed this visually and it came up in the 20 questions as well. So I was going to say, does anyone know where Doug grew up? As the question, because I think it's a hard question, but it's not super hard.
We do have quite a few viewers that have been here for hours.
They've been here the whole time.
They've been here the whole time, so I feel like people will answer it pretty quick.
There's multiple answers to that question, right? Because it's not just one place. So are you asking for all the places I grew up? Because I didn't list. I listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 countries, maybe.
I think just the first one that your coffee cup related to.
Yeah,
I think that's a good question.
This mug, I'll hide the place.
That's it. If you can tell us where Doug's cup is from, you win a free download.
Incorrect.
Right?
Nope.
Incorrect. Not Scotland.
I'm giving
told
clues.
A very great story about all of this. Where the mug came from.
Well, while we're waiting for an answer, what languages do you program in, Doug? Or what are you most comfortable with? What do you usually
most comfortable in PHP, but You know, JavaScript I'm pretty good at now, and
Nice.
learning Python and stuff. You know, once you can code, you can kind of learn other stuff easily or quickly. You know, you can just look at some code and C. I've been learning some C because I was working some Arduino stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, but most come from PHP. My go-to language is PHP. Like if I'm coding back-end server stuff, that's always PHP.
We've got a few answers coming in, all incorrect.
All incorrect.
We've
This
got
is
India.
extraordinary.
We've
I
got
think that there is some
Israel.
confusion because people thought that India was what related to your mug, but
Yeah, they all Googled PC Sorcar. No,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
show that PC Sorcar did, and you won't even be able to Google it, but April 13th and 14th, 1988.
That's amazing.
I was wondering how you had such a specific memory of exactly when you saw your first Magic, but it was because the date is on the mug.
No, actually, it's because I got his autograph. I should show it to you. I got it here. This is awesome. I'm gonna get his autograph for you.
This is Blaze's hum track in between.
Yo, I didn't even realize I was humming. That's ridiculous.
All right,
Yeah, that's
here
not good.
is an envelope that I've had for years. Here is the ticket stub. On the
Nice.
show. Here are newspaper clippings that my mom saved from the show with like the article and the guy and everything. So these are
Wow.
like, I don't know why my mom saved them, but she saved them because I wasn't even into Magic at the time. Here is my sister with PC Sorcar. Great photo of my sister. And
Yeah.
here's another photo of me with PC Sorcar, but it's the back of my head. And again, my sister face. So,
Doug, you were such a good-looking kid.
yeah. And then here is the autograph. I'm going to block out the location, but this is how he signed. It's on a Post-it note. Hold on. Let me
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
do a little image. of
That's a
himself.
hardcore signature.
It is a hardcore
That
signature.
is hardcore, dude.
That's why I showed it to you, is because this is the care that this guy took to make an autograph for a little kid.
So
And he wrote the date underneath too. So that's how I knew what date I saw the shows from this autograph. Because he, yeah,
that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Here's some that relates to that. So I'm going to give the Magic World a secret right now that I don't usually tell people, but my real last name is not Edwards. I have this big, huge, really long last name. And so when I was in university, I did a TV show and I did street magic in between these music videos, and I was the host of the show. And so we were going out to film, and the first day of filming, my friend who was producing the show goes, "What's your name going to be on the show?" And I was like, "Oh, well, Ryan, obviously." But he's like, "Well, you need a last name." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Yeah, we can't use my real last name. It's too long. No one will be able to pronounce it and stuff." And so we threw out some weird names and stuff, and then it ended up being Ryan Gates. Thank goodness I didn't keep that.
Let me ask you, what's your ethnicity and like your background?
So my parents, my actual real last name is
Armenian?
hyphenated. Pardon?
What is your real name, last name?
Don't say it.
No, it's actually hyphenated. So the first half is Irish, and the second half is Polish.
Got it.
And so it was just way too hard. And I said, that's never going to work, especially a hyphenated name for people to look up on YouTube and stuff. So so we said Ryan Gates, and I used that for the TV show. And so anytime I signed an autograph with that, I used to draw a picture of a gate and stuff with like a spade on top and stuff of the gates. And it was way too much work. And then, so I go by Edwards because my middle name is Edward. And my dad's name was Edward, and my grandfather's name was Edward, and both of them have passed. So after my dad passed away, I said, I'd like to pay homage to my dad, who was a huge Magic fan, never did Magic, but loved it. And helped me, push me to do magic and stuff. And so yeah, that's why I'm Ryan Edwards.
It's a good name. It's a catchy name.
And now almost no one knows me by my real last name. It's very odd, like when someone says my real last name.
Don't even say it. I think it's more interesting that like people don't know it.
I imagine the Irish part has a bunch of vowels next to each other, and then I imagine that the Polish part has like a C and a Z.
You would be right in those statements. Although the Irish only has 2 vowels next to each other.
Oh, okay.
But the Polish does have a Z or a Z, and it does have a C in it as well.
And a K.
No K.
Okay.
But my fiance is Polish. Her parents came to Canada right from Poland, so she's like first generation Canadian, I guess. And so her last name has so many consonants in a row. I was like, when she spelled it for me the first time, I was like, you just messed up. You missed a vowel. I was like,
you messed up.
Because it's ZCZ all of a sudden in between.
ZCZ?
Yeah, and I was like, no, you're missing vowels.
Can't you just cut out the CZ and just say the Z part? Or like...
Oh, no, because it makes a different sound in Poland. So,
wow.
You speak Polish or no?
Very, very little. I want to learn. I'm very good at understanding it. So her parents actually came and lived with us a little bit during COVID, probably for like 3 or 4 months, maybe, because they had bought a new house and it was being built still, and then it was delayed because of COVID. And so they had already sold their house. So they moved in here. And so I would just listen to them talk, and I would say, I think this is what you said. And like, I would say 9 out of 10 times I was right or pretty close. I don't know. I just always had a way of understanding what people were saying, even though I didn't know the language, I guess. But so yeah, they've taught me some things, but not a ton. So one day when we have kids, hopefully they'll learn Polish as well. Just not from me.
Here's something that I'm curious about is like, I remember talking with, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, he's got the poster from it.
This was not the poster from my show, unfortunately. This is a poster.
Oh, okay.
But that's what it looked like.
That's awesome. That's super awesome.
Wow.
You have the full collection, Doug.
Yeah.
No, you know what it is? It's like just there's certain things that like are important to me. So I have this. One of my other favorite things is that first book of magic I ever bought. Now You See It, Now You Don't. I own some original artwork from that book.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome. I own the image of the 3 different coin palms, like classic palm, and maybe a finger palm, I think it is. Yeah, just the stuff that like kind of my origin story of magic. It's the stuff that's like means something to me. Like I value that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff.
So I think the question we asked may have been too difficult.
Maybe it was too difficult. Now, I have a question for Doug before we get into the next giveaway question. Is just because it seems like we're going to need a different question. So one thing that I've noticed myself and also talking with other people is that audiences in different locations tend to vary quite a bit. And there can be cultural reasons or even just whether that region is used to experiencing a lot of entertainment. Like I noticed that like I just find audiences are different, not necessarily better or worse, but they're different if I'm back where I'm originally from in the Northeast US compared to like when I was living over in LA. It's like just different audiences.
Where do you live now?
Right now, I moved out of LA during lockdown, so I'm back with my family and kind of assessing the situation with.
Where's your family?
Where I'm planning to Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, back in the Northeast, and people are less used to seeing a lot of entertainment over here. I mean, obviously, people see entertainment all the time on their phones and stuff, but seeing live magic, it's definitely they're a lot less used to that. And that can be, a good and a bad thing in different instances. But I know when I was talking with Shin about when he first got booked to do a tour after FISM, he was booked to do performances in China. And he was saying that it was such a different culture entirely and that the audiences were way harder, but it was like he felt like he got his reps in performing for audiences that like were just kind of like on their phone, like Skyping their friends in the middle of the audience and stuff, and like totally not, applauding or whatever. So out of all of the different places that you've been, where do you feel you've had the best experiences with audiences, and where do you feel like you've had the worst experiences with audiences?
It's a good question.
And is there a huge delta in that?
Yes. So I always feel lucky that I live in New York, because I think New York audiences are tough because they've seen so much good entertainment that it's like before a baseball game when you see the guy swinging an extra heavy bat, and then when he goes up to swing a regular bat, like it's easy for him, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like because I've done so much work in New York that like I feel like a lot of audiences outside of New York who haven't been exposed to as much magic are much easier. The one kind of fun story, the first time I ever did magic for a Japanese client, it was myself, and the first time I ever worked a gig with Ryan Oakes, and it was for like a Japanese travel agency here in New York. This is years ago. And before the gig, the client was like, look, these people are very reserved. They're going to, even if they don't applaud or like react, don't worry, they're still enjoying themselves. They gave us this whole spiel. And Ryan and I were like, oh, okay, man, this sounds like a tough gig. They were incredible. They lost their shit. It was like completely the opposite of what they told us. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
And they were so expressive. So expressive. The most difficult place, India. And I say that because when you're filming magic for TV, the worst reaction that you can ever get is applause. It's awful. It reads terribly. Even though the audience thinks they're being nice and appreciating what you're doing, you want the people running away. You want the people that are freaking out. Like applause is just like polite, right?
Yeah.
And in India, there's a very big difference between guru and magician. By definition, a magician uses a trick. He's using trickery, sleight of hand. It's a trick. There's a method to it. Whereas a guru is doing something that's real. It's something that they were born to do. It's within their family. It's within their powers as a person. Now, there are plenty of gurus in India. One specifically named Sai Baba, who practiced sleight of hand and magic. And when you were filming magic in India, as soon as they heard you were a magician, they immediately knew it was a trick, and they already dismissed any magic that you want to imply, because in their head it's long gone. It's out the window before the trick even started, right? Before the magic even started, it was immediately, this guy's using tricks. So India was probably the most difficult place to get genuine people freaking out from a piece of magic, because in their minds, it wasn't magic. It never was magic to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the most difficult. Again, it's cultural. It's just by definition there,
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating, the different cultural reactions to magic, or just presuppositions people have before you even begin about what a magician is.
In the Middle East, they typically view magic as something, they put it in a religious context in the Middle East. So they believe in jinn, and jinn is where the word genie comes from in English. And jinn in the Quran are spirits that are created from a smokeless fire, right? That's like the definition of jinn. And there's a lot of superstition in the Middle East. I don't know if you have any viewers from the Middle East watching right now, but there's certain regions of the Middle East that are more superstitious than others. And one of the beliefs is that certain people have command over an army of these spirits, of these jinn, and magicians have, by definition, control over jinn. And there are even spell books. There's a book that's known in Arabic as Shams al-Ma'arif is the name of the book. And it's illegal to even own this book. And apparently, I've never seen a copy, but apparently if you open the book, it basically says gibberish, right? It's like gibberish, but if you read this gibberish, then you now gain control over these spirits. And look, these are very deep nested beliefs. And I've had many opportunities performing in the Middle East where the person really does believe that what I'm doing is related to jinn and spirits, and it sometimes to the point that makes me uncomfortable that they have these beliefs. So I then have to tell them, oh, it's quick hands, or something. It's a trick, and I don't like doing that. But like in certain circumstances, it's warranted because they're believing in something that's not what you're doing, and that can sometimes be misconstrued in many ways, and it's not necessarily a good message to leave behind about yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of American audience or like Western audiences will it's like they oftentimes go in with the presupposition that what you're going to do is a trick, and so if they leave with the idea that this could be potentially something more, then that can be a really cool element to it for their experience. Mm-hmm. Whereas if someone's going in with the presupposition, oh, this is real, and and so now it's like, oh, this is getting a little bit too real for me. Like, we should kind of reel it in and let them know, like, I don't want you to think that I have some ability to contact your relatives or whatever.
It's different though if they don't have a basis of why it's real. They think it's just a weird skill you have that you've developed, or that you have some kind of superpower. It's very different than if they believe, or if they have come to their own conclusion that your skill is related to like spirits, or like something that could be misconstrued and could also have strong implications. One second, just turning my lights off. It could have strong implications that could impact safety, right? So like back then, also in the Middle East, like you shouldn't really be doing that stuff. It was. Here's a quick story. So in Saudi Arabia, you have Hajj. Hajj is like pilgrimage. Every Muslim once in their life is supposed to do a pilgrimage. Is supposed to go to Mecca and perform pilgrimage. And it's a very holy thing, and it's something that people look forward to doing at least once in their life. And there's unfortunately a lot of people that try and take advantage of people in that situation. And when I was growing up in Saudi Arabia, there were stories in the newspaper of people that were coming from Nigeria and places like that, and they were essentially scamming people that were doing their Hajj, their pilgrimage, and they were claiming to be able to do black magic, right? So the newspapers used to report in the newspaper, so-and-so Nigerian national or whoever who was scamming people, but they wouldn't report it as scams. They would report it as they were doing black magic, right? And that black magic might involve fortune telling or whatever the fuck these people were doing to extract money from people on their pilgrimage. But it was looked down upon. These people were arrested and punished. So growing up in that environment, I had to be really careful that the stuff that I was doing was not perceived as black magic or command over spirits or other things. Magic was not sleight of hand, and magic was not necessarily a popular thing that people saw on YouTube, because back then YouTube didn't exist. People's only experience was stories that they'd heard, right? They didn't bring magicians to Saudi Arabia to perform for the public. It wasn't a thing. Oman, different, right? Where I grew up when I was a kid. Like I said, very westernized and very different. But like Saudi Arabia, not so much.
It's okay you said it, since nobody got the answer.
No one got the answer.
No, I know. I knew we were going to say.
I was like, we're going to ask a different question, but I was like, I laughed for a second.
It was Oman, everybody. It was Oman.
So Oman had, kind of different culture and different rules, and they were a little bit more adopting of Western values. Saudi Arabia, not so much. So, doing magic in Saudi, and people want to attribute whatever you're doing to like spirits and jinn, it's like, it's a little made me a little uncomfortable that like it could have safety implications on me, that like maybe get arrested or something if the story gets out of hand, right? So I don't necessarily like telling people that what I'm doing is not real. I don't like saying it's real or not real. I like people to make their own minds, and I think that conversation is an interesting one for people to have for themselves or with other people. But I don't necessarily want to imply that spirits, because that could be detrimental, or it was at the time. Now, not so much. Now they have magicians in the Middle East that perform shows, and it's on TV, and it's a lot more westernized
Mainstream,
than when I grew up there.
Absolutely.
So,
So we should get another question.
Kevin says, "Yo, Kevin, we're almost done. We were doing a giveaway,
We're almost done.
but
I said, "Oh man, no one got Oman."
I was gonna say it. I was gonna be like, "Oh man, no one like,
oh man, oh man,
no one's got it yet. Oh man," and like try to give a hint and stuff. But I was like,
nobody got it. Like I said, it's a weird country that not many people have heard of.
Yeah. So, Blaze, do you have a question?
Yes. One moment.
If not, I've got one that, I mean, it should be easy. Most magicians should just be able to throw out a bunch of
What
answers
effect did Doug say that he was most proud of?
Oh, I think that's still going to be tough. I was going to say, what magic convention did me and Doug meet at first? But
Bryce said Princess Card Trick. It wasn't most proud of Princess Card Trick.
No, that's definitely not most proud of. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I have one right now. I'm more proud of, but I don't want to say what it is yet because I'm still keeping it under wraps.
Xavier said ambitious sponge bunnies. That was pretty close.
I think that we might have gotten both correct by one person. Are those both correct answers? So the convention that you both met at was Blackpool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And phone trick. I mean, the most vague. That's a category.
Vague. Yeah.
But I think we can give it to Bryce for this week.
I think so. Bryce is a weekly viewer. I think he's tuned in every single week, basically, and is
I know Bryce, right?
Always
Bryce
asking questions and stuff. Yeah, Bryce is awesome.
What's up, Bryce?
So, Bryce, hit me up on Instagram. You have me on Instagram already, so hit me up on Instagram. You get any download from Lost Art Magic. So go on, pick it out. Let me know.
Bryce is a great guy. So happy for you, man. And yeah.
But
great moves.
Doug, we usually chat for a few minutes after we get off the stream. I can't wait to chat with you off stream. So let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's talk about the real stuff. I'll tell you some secrets.
Yeah, we always like to end the episode with the way that we started, Doug.
What is that? You're going to rap again?
That's it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Doug. He's got to remove that thing. So, all right.
Wait, do we have to do the backwards? So it's
yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Doug. We really appreciate it.
And we're back next week. We'll see you guys next Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Mr. Eric LeClaire.
Drop a beat.